Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, and welcome back. We are doing another Tau faction card review today, but this time it's going to be a little bit different because we've had the cards for an entire month, which is fantastic. We've obviously had a lot of time. Actually, it's been just under a month, but we've had time to actually play with the cards rather than just theorize with them. And in addition to that, as opposed to going through these on my own, I am actually joined by fellow gamer Barric, who, for those of you who don't know, is currently in like the top three on ladder, and is also somebody who's been pretty much deep diving into Tau. So welcome to the stream, Barric. How are you doing?
Thanks, BJ. It's great to get to finally be on one of these videos. I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited to talk about the Tau. I think I'm happy to finally see a new faction in the game. Good to see some new content and playing with it in the last couple of weeks has been really fun. I think it's breathed a nice breath of fresh life in this game,
Oh,
and
for
I'm
sure.
excited to get into this.
For sure, it really has. And am I right in thinking that you have pretty much played Tau exclusively since it came out?
Well, maybe I'll make a quick confession here. I've been playing the Tau a lot, but I've also been playing that Gaz control
Mm,
a good bit because I think that has been a pretty defining deck in the meta right now. And so getting to play that deck as well as play the Tau has kind of let me learn more about both sides of
mm.
what's going on. So I've been doing both, but definitely been trying to focus on how to build, a pretty efficient, powerful Tau list for the meta that's not just, say, drone spam, which is might be what everyone thinks about when they hear Tau.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, there's two things you said there that'd be really interesting. I think maybe once we've reviewed the cards, maybe we could have a little look at like a little deck building bit if you want, and have a little look at what we think um, uh, is working well. But also you said there that you played like the Gazgul and the Tau to kind of see both sides of it and understand. So that's
Right.
kind of interesting. So what are some of your kind of takeaways from that?
Well, so I mean, I started this game at the tail end of season one. Is when I came in,
Mm,
and Gaz had been really strong then as like super aggressive. I know his ability was really overtuned, and then it got nerfed, but he was still prevalent in like seasons two, and then three came along, and we got armor on him, and he's become a beast since then. And so I just kept when I started playing Tau, I got really excited and built my decks, and I kept losing to Gaz over and over. So like I gotta play this deck so I kind of understand why I'm losing to it, and why it seems to be so dominant over the other decks in the meta as well. And I mean, it's just essentially they have more answers in their deck than other factions can put up within a number of threats, except for maybe Turbigon,
yeah.
which just got changed recently. But yeah, it was really kind of that play style that reminds me that Gaz is a lot like the classic control decks of other
Yeah.
online card games. I've played a lot of Hearthstone before I
Mm,
came to Warpforge for a long time, and I immediately just started thinking more of like, okay, I don't need to play cards anymore because I'm just have this board wipe. I'm going to save all my resources, wipe their board. I'm healing up the damage I'm taking, and now I can take control of the game. Versus almost every other deck, and I played a bunch of the other factions in this game as well before Tau came out. It's mostly board centric strategies.
mm.
No matter who you're playing, you're either trying to build a big stealth unit, Tyranids, or you're trying to take board tempo and go wide and put down flanking threats as Eldar.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really just like not do anything
No,
and then still win the game, but
no.
orcs can do that, and I
Yeah.
think that is very interesting.
I think that's a great point, and that, to be honest, I mean, I know a lot of people moan about the orcs, but again, similar to you, I played Hearthstone, I played Rune Terror, I played the Elder Scrolls Legends, Gwent, I've played loads of CCGs, and I actually really enjoy the orc control. It's actually one of my favorite decks because of exactly that, because it is very unique in Warpforge. It's not unique when you think of it in other CCGs. You can do that. You know, it plays like a classic control deck, like you say, maintaining resources. You know, you're not playing for tempo. You're trying to outvalue your opponent, and it does that. And for me, that makes it unique in the game. Now, it just happens to be that it's also the most powerful tech, so people hate it right now.
Right.
But it is from a design point of view. I think it's good for the game in the sense that it is unique. Like I say, otherwise it can become just a game that's just all about like
Who
tempo.
can put the biggest unit on
Yeah,
fastest, etc.
yeah. It's just different ways of gaining tempo over each other, which is in some ways is more susceptible to power creep, right? Like when you're releasing new factions, because it's like now we need an even bigger unit, or
Right,
or
or this
faster.
unit can come with 3 other friends of his for free.
Exactly. So like to actually be able to build more of a sort of aggro mid. It's why I don't like the nerf to Uriel. So the Uriel nerf
Hmm.
recently taking away the card, I think is really bad for the game because they'd actually created a genuine aggro deck there, which wouldn't have been too out of control at the minute because since the Gordrang release, orcs can stand up to that aggro much better now, and there are other decks like obviously the tower now here. I think they should have revert that. They should keep the URL in. Otherwise, all the decks are just in danger of feeling a little bit too the same. But
Yeah, I would say I mostly agree with you there. I definitely enjoyed for I mean, I played the Uriel aggro deck when it was the season 2 prevalent. That was actually, I think, when I first broke onto the top 50 was with that. And it was definitely a good aggro deck. It was like clean and consistent, and maybe it ended games too quickly for some players, but it was good to have a healthy, pretty fair aggro deck with burn that you could, it was gonna be there. You knew what to play around for the most part,
mm,
and not having that is definitely what's allowing these slower, more combo or mid-range creature fruit builds to flourish. But as far as drawing the extra card, I mean that definitely was what gives them the resources to move. And maybe that's not super original. I know they gave that to Nemosaur as well, and people are like, they're like, what? Can't think of something different to do. But definitely having a good aggro deck is healthy for almost any meta. Maybe Uriel can return to that position.
yeah, definitely. I hope I do hope that they consider bringing that back for sure. All right. Well, look, let's. I got a feeling that we could talk about the meta and stuff and get really down that rabbit hole. We might come back to a little bit. I'm also messing around technically and still trying to figure out why my camera's not showing.
Mm.
For those who are listening to this, I'm having a bit of a nightmare because one of my monitors is just not working. So we're doing things a little bit differently, and oh, there we go. Looks like my camera is now somewhat working. Hello, everyone. All right, let's get back to it. Okay, so as I say, a few weeks ago, I did a full review of every single card Barric, and the way we did this is just a really simple kind of 1 to 5 rating, right? So 1 being like really terrible, unplayable card. 2 being like it's a bad card, like it's not necessarily completely unplayable, but it's not it's not good. It's a pretty bad card. 3 being like it's situational, like in certain situations it can be good, but it needs that situation. Otherwise, it's probably just meh, just sort of sitting in your hand. 4 is
Mhm.
like good. So these are the cards that we talked about, kind of essentially making up most of the decks. Like the sort of staple of the backbone of your decks, if you like. And then S tier being those, oh my god, these are the kind of meta-defining cards. These are the cards that are you couldn't ask for more for that amount of energy, and they tend to be the sort of real win cons really in the decks. So that's
Right.
kind of like the rating system. And obviously, when I did this last time, we the cards weren't out. It was just theorizing, but now we've had time to play it. And I really wanted to get you on because I just think it'd be cool for two guys who have spent quite a bit of time with the Tau since they came out, just to get our heads together and kind of figure out where we think they're at. So, if you're ready, should we dive in?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
So the first card we've got is the Callion Tactics.
All
Uh,
right.
Now, I think last time I had this in S tier, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like, oh my god, it's only 1 energy. It kind of gives the entire board 2 marker light, except for the Warlord, sorry. But it does affect units in stealth, for example, and you don't need to target them. How have you found this card, and where would you have this?
So I would say my initial reaction was definitely yours. I thought it was an S tier card, and to be honest, I don't think I run a single Tau deck without at least one copy of it. Uh, and it's definitely worth bringing up right now. Is just the main reason this card is so good is not only is it like a 1 energy for 2 damage for each troop they have essentially on the board, as long as you're swinging something into it because of the marker light, but the combo with Relentless Fusillade, which I'm sure we'll get to
Mm.
later on, is just insane. Threatening a 5 energy, 4 damage board wipe. So this is a phenomenal card. The only thing is, I do understand that not all Tau builds might want to run Fusillade, and some might have things, they're spending their energy to fill the board
Mm.
faster than their opponent can. So while it definitely is a powerful card, maybe now I'd say still good. Not, I don't see it in every list, and I can definitely understand reasons not to run it, but it's incredibly powerful if you're running Fusillade. I would say it's an auto include. And for anything that needs a little bit of early game reach to get rid of an early chaos troop with 2 marker light through their camo is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree
What do
with
you think?
everything you said there. And I had it as is S tier because I thought well, you can't ask for any more for 1 energy. But I have actually found that there's quite a number of games where it's just sitting there in my hand, and I'm like, I don't really need to play it. I don't really need to play it. I don't really need to play it. And sometimes when that happens, I kind of think, well, what card would I rather have in my hand right now then? Do you know what I mean? So,
Oh,
every
I'm with you there 100%. I've had the
mm,
games where I have 2 in my hand and I'm losing. I'm like, well, I wish I had 2 other cards maybe. And so for
exactly.
that reason,
Yeah, so for me, I'd probably demote it a little bit to good. It's still right near the top of good. It's very good, but and like you say, with that combo, it's excellent. But it's not a card that you draw it in any situation. You're super happy you've got it. Like you probably would rather have other cards at times. So yeah, so I'm thinking it's kind of probably towards the top of good. Would
yeah,
you?
certainly a phenomenal card in this game where some factions only dream for this at 1 energy.
Oh
But
yeah.
in the Tau specifically, we have a lot of good cards to get to. In the context of that, I would definitely say this is a good
Yeah.
card.
Okay. And you mentioned the Fusillade, so we might as well put that one in as well. Where do you think that one
Alrighty.
sits?
This is gonna be a 5 for sure.
Yeah.
I think this is how you originally had this card. I mean, just look at Storm Raven from the Ultramarines. Almost every Ultramarines deck runs 2 of that, and this is just a strictly better version.
Are you running this in pretty much every deck, or?
2 of this in every deck, just because the threat of Scarabs is still out there.
Mm.
And then with Ion Tactics in this card, you're wiping a Rock Invasion, you're wiping a drone spam deck. You're clearing almost anything you need to.
Mm. I did run my first deck actually today. Actually, I called it no. What did I call it? Something tempo.
No
No,
cheats.
no cheese tempo or something. No cheat tempo. Yeah. So there was none of the kind of like make your drones cheaper, give them shields and stuff. It was just, but it was based around like you said earlier, just completely playing tempo and taking the board, and so therefore, I kind of skimped on these 2 cards. But you know, like you say, it is nice knowing it's in your deck. Sometimes you think, oh, I hope I draw this next turn, so it is nice to
Right.
have it. And like you say, the dealing 2 for 4 is good. That's Storm Raven, but having the upside of, even just having 1 marker light and maybe 1 unit taking 4 damage makes this
Hmm.
really, really good. So yeah, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, it deals 2 damage to the whole board, including the Warlord. But if anything's got a marker light on it, then it deals 4 damage. So yeah, very, very good value, I guess,
And
for the 4.
one more thing I know about this card is that it's doing this damage to the Warlord, and so if they have Marklight on them because of a Marker Drone or Dark Strider, which is another guy that could put Marklight on Warlord, the Warlord's taking 4 damage. And so not
Mm,
only have you wiped the board, you also done 4 damage to the Warlord, which is a whole other 4 energy card that the Ultramarines have. So it's a ton of value. I think just today I closed out maybe 2 games just playing this for 2 or 4 damage as some extra burn finisher. It's versatile and powerful.
100%. All right, next up we got the Devilfish.
Alrighty. I would say this card is a 4,
Yeah.
pretty solidly. When I first saw this card spoil before I even like fully read the text, I thought this is incredible. I didn't read the caveat that it is infantry and drones only, which made me rethink it a little bit considering a lot of the powerful cards seem to be battle suits, but there's a definitely a good number of infantry and drones. And actually, I think you might have be better to talk about this card than me because I know you recently came up with a pretty interesting deck list that revolves around this guy.
Yeah, I've come up with a few actually. It's a really weird card. I'm similar to you. I'm sort of going through a U curve at the minute. So when I first saw it, I thought this is busted. This is going to be one of the best cards in the faction. Then I actually started playing and building decks and realized actually this is very limited because well, a lot of the infantry is not great and just didn't seem to have a deck that it fit well into and couldn't play a lot of the good stuff that you wanted with it. And I thought actually this is quite a bad card, not bad card, but more like a situational card. But
Hmm.
very recently, in the last sort of week, I've actually found a number of decks now where the Devilfish is. So what the Devilfish does is it provides quite a unique role, I think, in the faction. One of the weaknesses of Tau, I think, is that they're not very good at coming back on the board when they fall behind.
Hmm.
There's no orcs, there's no Will of Gork here, there's no, there's no squig buggies and all that sort of stuff. So they struggle to take the board back, and so they generally have to be ahead on tempo. The Devilfish is the exception. The exceptions were Long Strike. Long Strike can help you take the board back, but the Devilfish can help you take the board back in that kind of late mid game, and I found it to be incredibly effective at that. And so it's kind of opened up a different not necessarily style of play with Tau, but it's certainly opened up different lines of play. So, yeah, at the minute I'd probably agree with you that I think maybe a four's about right, but I could honestly see this. Like I say, I'm on a U-turn. I could honestly see this going back up to a five. And the other thing about the Devilfish, it's only going to get better, right? As they release expansions and more cards for Tau, this card will get better because there'll be more infantry, right? There'll be more drones. Interestingly, when they release the Kroot expansion, which is inevitably going to happen, I imagine there'll be a lot of Kroot that says infantry, right? So like
Hmm.
that'll be that, which is kind of weird because I don't think the Kroot can ride Devilfish in terms of the lore and everything. But
Oh,
it's yeah, I do think they will probably benefit from the Devilfish, and that means you'll have flanking Kroot. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.
that's a great point you bring up. The ceiling on this card is very high in terms of
Yes.
them adding stuff to this game. And right now, we might not have the most exciting infantry, even though a lot of the legendaries, which are some of the best cards to have, are infantry. I will say that. When they release new stuff, I can definitely see Devilfish rising in popularity.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well let's keep it at four for now, and then we'll sort of come back. What do you think the Fire Warrior is? The humble Fire
Mm,
Warrior, the sort of
not super exciting here. I see that. I know wasn't thought much of in the beginning, and honestly, I still probably wouldn't use him in a deck. I would say honestly, after that discussion of the Devilfish, maybe he's like 2 energy for 4 flanking damage.
yeah,
All right, could be justified. With Anfa, you can buff him to survive a hit or give him shield. A
yeah,
little interesting there. Hiding
yeah.
behind a guardian drone. I'd put this guy at bad. I could see his uses for it, but I can't right now with infantry being, only all right compared to other stuff. How I would definitely put him at bad.
I do think about maybe one Fire Warrior is actually good in an infantry deck with Devilfish because, like you say, it's a two energy flanker with for four, which is pretty powerful. When that specific scenario happens, and
Right,
outside of that, like you say, you could kind of just drop him next to Alvar and give him the health buff, but it's not amazing. You'd probably rather do that on other units. I
right.
can't decide whether it's unplayable still or bad. It is playable only in that deck, I think, only in that scenario.
I would agree there.
I don't know, is it a one or is it? I mean, I guess if I compare it to say Orc Boy, and it's kind of peers in other factions, it is slightly better because it at least
Right.
has that synergy. Although Orc Boy has synergy with the Green Horde, sorry. Right, Orc Boy is another unit that you can bring on for zero cost, so it's not quite true. I don't know. I don't know if it's a one or a two, but I'm not really playing it in any deck, so maybe it is still a one.
Well, maybe you put him in unplayable. There's a lot of good
Yeah,
cards in Tau.
yeah. I think it's
Your
towards
deck
the,
should not have this guy in it
it
if there's
shouldn't
other
really.
things.
It shouldn't really. I think it's towards the top of unplayable. The top of unplayable. What an accolade.
Indeed.
All right. Where should we go? Let's go Vespid. Vespid's
Alrighty.
been everywhere, hasn't he? How are you finding
Yeah.
Vespid?
I'm honestly a little disappointed in myself that he didn't go in my deck sooner. I think the first like 4 or 5 days I didn't use this card, and I don't know why. This is definitely an S tier card. I think almost every deck, no matter if you're drones or battle suits or vehicles or infantry, I mean it is infantry, you want to be playing at one, if not two Vespids because yeah, Tau have not many ways to get back on board, and this guy is one of them in the early game.
True.
He's hard to deal with, even harder with Anva when he's giving him health buffs. And even in the late game, he's coming down, taking out something, flanking that you didn't want to spend one of your big battle suits to attack. He's getting buffed with Storm of Fire to take out something.
Yeah.
It's versatile. I mean, just look at the
Great with
the
Shadow Sun.
stats, the keywords. With Shadow Sun, you can get buffed. It's so much value for 3 energy. It's yeah.
Yeah, and he's quite funny with Onvar when you keep raising his health. Like I've had sometimes Vespids get a bit out of control. They've ended up with like 6, 7 health, and because they can't take it down with the armor, and yeah,
Right.
it's a good card,
And
isn't it?
it's a melee flyer with
Yeah,
just smacking drones without taking any damage in the drone mirrors that are or the drone decks that are coming around.
yeah,
So
super powerful, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, I like Vespid. I'm kind of again, I'm thinking Kroot might have something that's like give everything +1 melee attack or something. This guy gets even better in there, but we'll see. All right. What about the Crisis Bodyguard? So this is the I should probably read this out for people who don't know. So this is the 4 energy card, and it basically comes with Shield and Vanguard, right? And you can see the stats. It's got 4 health, 5 range, attack, 2 melee. What do you think to this guy?
this guy, I'm probably thinking about the same when I saw him. I think he's a good card. Because he's doing a lot at 4 energy. And he's got a very special keyword battle suit. So anyone that has knows the card dynamic offensive, which I'm sure we'll get to,
Hmm.
is that turns this into such a powerful turn 4 or any 4 energy play at any turn.
Yeah.
5 flanking damage that
The
is just going to
shield.
pop the shield.
Yeah. Yeah.
So easy 2 for 1s. This reminds me a lot of Howling Banshee
Yeah.
in terms of just like a good rare card, decent stats that can provide a lot of value for what the faction wants to do. The Tau want to protect their other units. They want to abuse shield by putting it back on with things like Anva or the Serene Unifier. They want battle suits to give them flank. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a real solid card.
I think it's a little bit meta dependent as well. Like it's definitely noticeable that it's a lot worse against chaos.
Hmm.
With the kind of like melee flankers, things like that. But very good against Tau. Like it's very good in the mirror match, right? Because Tau are trying to trade with range attack all the time, so they're trading
Right.
into the 5. And it's also dependent on the deck you're running. So for example, if you're running the DSA on 3, and then you play this on 4, I mean that's just a fantastic um, uh, line of play, right? Because he's trying to remove the DSA, and then this guy comes down, blocks for another turn. The DSA just keeps AoE on the board. So yeah, I'd agree with you there. I think a 4 is pretty reasonable overall. What about the Pathfinder? How have you been
Uh,
finding this, and how have you been using it in practice?
yeah, so I think Pathfinder is another one of these phenomenal value cards. I think I had it at a 5, and I would say like it is S tier, and I have gotten the sense that it doesn't go in every deck, but the ones that it does go into, it is going to be pulling so much weight for 2 energy or 4 or 6 or 3 or 4, depending on the cost reduction you have, because it's offering just so much for a 2 energy card. I mean, I like
Mm.
comparing it with other things, and I'm thinking Firstborn of the Ultramarines again. If you hit Codex with the Firstborn, you get a random ping. This guy's offering targeted 2 damage per troop you can attack with at 2 energy. This 2 damage can go through camo, and that's just like the floor. Any later in the game, you're getting drones for free potentially if you're using cost reduction. Um,
Oh God, you're making me want to just
now,
go and play Pathfinder. It's
yeah,
so good.
he does a phenomenal amount and has just the versatility that makes it worth bringing a 2 drop card on almost any circumstance. I think the only thing I would say is I was running a lot of battle suits in the beginning of Tau, and he does hurt the consistency of drawing battle suits with dynamic offensive.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't
sometimes
put
if
him
you
in there.
really care about only having certain type that's not infantry, not for that, but everything else he's like
Yeah, I'd agree.
great.
I'd agree. He's in almost every other day. I think the other thing, I don't know if you found this as well, but when I first was using it, I was a bit reluctant to play it on turn one. I think what I've realised now, I mean, imagine you're going second and you're playing mirror match. No, let's say you're playing a Mesos. A Mesos drops a drone, gun drone or something, so he goes
Hmm.
first. You then play this onto the gun drone, play your defense drone, so you've now got a
Hmm.
1-3 blocker, and then your Lord trades and kills his drone. Just that in itself is an incredible tempo swing. You've suddenly stolen tempo from the enemy Tau deck. So I think as soon as you, like you say, as soon as you sort of get over that obstacle of not not wanting to get all the drones out of him, like if it's right to play him on turn one or two, you should play him. You know, don't worry about the drones, and that's actually probably a common theme for a lot of the companion cards. But certainly with this guy, I think he's phenomenal. Yeah. So we're going 5 for Mr. Pathfinder, yeah?
I would say so for sure.
What about the stealth drone?
Dang, you're coming out with all the good cards. I think this guy is another five.
I think he's like a 5 plus. He's so good.
Yeah,
He's so good. He's so
I
good.
mean, all I had to think about is how annoying have Tyranids been when they stealth a unit for one turn. You just think about that. And now this guy is stealthing a unit for two turns
Yeah.
most of the time, and he's another body to get buffed or to get armored or whatnot. Drone synergy is getting cheaper. You're making them as companions of some cards. You can give him stealth again with Dark Strider. It's just
So
it
good.
works in almost every Tau strategy. You want to either be stealthing your battle suits, or you want to be stealthing your piranha. You want to be stealthing your devilfish. Like there's nothing. There's almost no good troop you're running into that you don't want to stealth except the Vanguard maybe.
So good. I mean, even stealth in the Vanguard, you know, the defense card, the 1-3.
Hmm.
Like sometimes it's even correct to stealth that because you actually want the, for example, you might want to get the buff from Onvar's hero power that turn, but you actually want the Vanguard to take effect next turn when you drop something like, I don't know, sniper drone or something. So, I mean, like you say, in almost every situation, there's like multiple things you can do with this card. It's just phenomenal. It's a real S tier card for sure. And what about the now? Let's take one of the recently nerfed cards. So we have had a patch literally today. This is a legendary card. It's 4 energy, and it says that once you've played it, basically all of the drones get shield from now on. And I don't like this card. I don't like the design of this card. I think it's quite toxic for the game.
Hmm.
And um, in the podcast episode, which by the time this is released, the new podcast with Ecclesiarch and I should be out, and we talked about it. And my idea for this card was to change it so that it essentially becomes a card draw for drone decks. So my idea was like it says something like, you know, draw the top 2 or 3 drones from your deck. So it's a card draw, and then it gives those specific 2 to 3 cards shield or flank. That's it. So it's draw, they get that buff, but at least playing against it, you know it's just those 3 cards that are getting the shield. It's not like every drone for the rest of the game, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. That was my idea for how I think they could kind of like keep the flavor of it, still keep it themed for drones, but tone it down a little bit. And what they've done today is they've essentially just added 1 to the cost. So they've kept it the same, but they've made it 5 energy. So A, what do you think to that change? And B, where do you think you'd rate it now?
All right. Yeah, this card definitely can seem toxic, especially for people who aren't having a good time clearing the drones. I mean, I've played against this card quite a bit, and it is certainly annoying to deal with. However, it is. I haven't. This is actually the only legendary I have not yet collected, so I've not gotten to use it firsthand except maybe one draft game. Uh, Although most times when it's played against me, I win the game, and that's because it's for 4 energy and now 5. It's a pretty big tempo loss for playing it if you can capitalize on it. Now, if you can't, you're gonna be hit with these shielded vanguards the rest of the game, and probably not gonna go too great. So yeah, I agree that between it being not, I mean, not thinking it's super viable for, really top tier decks or against ones that can capitalize on the disadvantage it gives you in tempo for playing it, and the fact that, I guess at lower ranks people are not having fun playing against this card. A change like you suggested could definitely be an improvement for, the overall health and fun of getting to use this card or getting it used against you. I would agree there. And as far as how it's rated right now, I think I had it at 4 before the nerf, but now I'd probably put it at 3 because like
Yeah.
you're only running this in like a pure drones list. Like I'm not, unless half my deck or more is up making drones, I don't want to spend 5 energy to do nothing.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, I know it says 4 there. This is the old copy of the art, but this is actually now 5 energy to cost. We're putting it here at 5 energy cost. And it is situational as well, just in the sense that it's a legendary, so you've only got one in your deck, and you just don't. If you play 20, if we went and played 20 games right now, this in our deck, of those 20 games, first of all, how many games do we even draw the card? And then of those 20 games that we do draw the card, how often do we draw it in, like, let's say, before turn 6? Because after
Right.
turn 6, like, the game's done, or it's not going to be impactful enough. So it's actually very situational, right? Like, in terms of ladder, where you need to be consistent, but it does feel horrendous. Like, when your opponent plays this onto, on an energy 4, turn 3, or whatever that is, it does feel horrible. So I'm glad that they've done something about it, and I probably agree with you that maybe a 3 out of 5. I don't think we can call it a bad card, but I'm not convinced
No,
we
it's
can call
certainly
it
not
good anymore.
bad, but I'm not playing this except maybe in like a no Mysos drone deck when
Yeah,
I do get it.
yeah. Okay, speaking of Amisus, where let's do the leaders next. Yeah, so where would we put
hmm
Amisus, Alvar, and Shadow Sun? And
Um, well,
have you been playing with all
gosh.
3 of them?
I have played a little bit with all 3 of them. Most of my gameplay has been with Anva. I have liked him the most, I will definitely say. But I mean, the Tau being a powerful faction they are, all their warlords are probably gonna rank highly, and even like amongst themselves in the context of just the Tau collection, I think they're all 4s and 5s. Omisos, first one I would say is a 5 for sure. Everyone has him. Everyone's using him for the most part. People like drones. People hate drones. It's like a very powerful swarm deck, supported by a very powerful hero power. Kind of like uh, not that a playstyle is similar to Galen, but the fact that you're making a unit every turn and you're also playing some very powerful cards from a powerful faction. Uh, Drone Commander has a lot of support right now. So I'd say he's probably S tier.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, if they nerf drones, then changes immediately because he basically gives a drone every turn. But as it is currently, yeah, I think you got to say this guy's a 5, right?
Yeah,
Um,
he's not my preferred one, but I have played some games with him, and a couple of them, like when the opponent doesn't have a way to clear your drones, you are probably going to win.
yeah.
And if they do have a way to clear your drones, then it gets a little tough, and that's why I haven't preferred him as much. But definitely against some decks, it's going to be very easy.
And Onvar's just busted, right? He's the S
Yeah,
tier. Yeah.
this guy is incredible. I guess in a way, I'm happy they pre-nerfed him, because if he had had his original ability, he would have definitely
Oh
gotten an
my
axe
god.
this today.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of surprised he actually didn't get touched,
Yeah.
considering how powerful I personally is using him like most of my game. Yeah, I did a lot of climbing with him at the end of last season and have been doing some more this season. I mean, honestly, where to start with this guy? He's has 4 abilities,
Mm.
that you can 3 of them you can hold over the course of the game. His ability primarily costs 1 energy for 3 health, which is, the ceiling of Neurothrope's ability is if you have a Synapse guy, then it's 3 health for 3 guys, or 1 health for 3 guys, rather. Um, he lets you trade your dudes with the shield card, which is only 3 energy total. He gives your whole board armor, which is just like game over against Eldar. He can also buff your whole board every turn ranged. Storm of Fire is an incredible closer. It is actually like, I think, very central to how the Tau can win most easily at the competitive levels is closing games out when the warlords, enemy warlords at like above 20 health, just because they left 5 units on your board, and now you're gonna play Storm of Fire and the one you made last turn for like 20 damage just on that.
Yeah.
He's great, and I think he's gonna stay probably like, I think like the top. Probably at the end of this season, I would bet he's gonna be like the best Tau Warlord.
Yeah, for
I don't know. What
sure.
are you thinking about him?
I think he's amazing. He's took me a little while to get my head around him, and I thought that it was quite expensive in some of his abilities, and that he'd fall behind on tempo playing them. But basically, you only ever really play uh, Storm of Fire to win the game. It's like the proper Killy or the Ravenous Hunter of the faction. I think that that might actually be the main problem. My suggestion for nerfing him is to do what they've done with the health. So you know the health, they've made it only the adjacent units get the benefit.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
all not the shield is the shield, but you know that keep that as it is. But the other abilities should all be the same. So it should only be the adjacent units that benefit from Storm of Fire, and only the adjacent units that benefit from the armor. And I think that would make him reasonable, and it would stop these like humongous Storm of Fire wins that you can get. Um, and also add to the. I quite like the positional play of thinking like who needs to be next to Var, and where do I need to place things for stealth, and there's quite a bit of positional play with Town, which is quite unique. So yeah, but as he is, I mean, he is literally insane. He's so much fun to use as well. Like you said, there's 4 different options. So every turn, it kind of your brain just you're just racking your brain thinking, right, what are all the different lines of play I can do here? And I think that's fun. But he's too powerful. Shadow's Son, I kind of think is really subtle, but good. There are many games where I can't tell you how many times I've got like, say I've got a crisis suit and I've got 4 ranged attack, and I'm looking at a unit across the board that's got 5 health, and I'm like, I'm one shot. And I don't know about you, Barric, but that's happened loads to me. It's happened loads. Tau don't have many pings, right? There's not much like 1 damage, ping damage, and essentially that's what Shadow Sun is. You know, Shadow Sun goes, here you go, Crisis Suit. Now you've got 5 ranged attack instead of 4. So in other words, she's just very good at tidying up the board. She's the best at tidying up the board. She's the best at controlling the board. But I do miss the heal of Anvar and the shields and everything. So for me, she's probably good. I think she's 4. I think the other 2 are 5. What do
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Shadow Sun is by no means like she's a very good warlord. I have not got to play her a whole lot, but when I have, I've done like, yeah, the reach that she gives Tau for being the faction that, once again, a low number of flankers, low number of ways to do like direct damage or ping or whatnot to reach over whatever your opponent played the previous turn. Shadow Sun's going to give that to you. And I think there's definitely like metas that can be coming where she can be S tier
Yeah,
because of the combo potential a marker light gives, making your wide board that much more threatening to trade into, or synergizing with cards like Coordinated Offensive. However, I think right now, and we'll get to this later on as well, is the defense card or the offense cards against Tau rather. I think that is really
yeah,
hurting Shadow Sun. That's why I haven't been using her very much.
yeah,
Because half your games are going to be a real slog to get through using her ability to its fullest potential. Like, yes, you can always buff your own unit, but that's not, I think, the power cap
no,
that could be her power.
yeah. You're right. I mean, it's like that infantry deck I was talking about earlier, isn't it, with the Devilfish? You can imagine like 2 or 3 units coming on and getting a flank from the Devilfish, and they're all benefiting from whatever the marker light that this Shadow Sun can put on. So the ceiling there is really high, but you're right. That offense card is really holding her back for sure. Okay, so we'll put her in good. Long strike. I mean, this is just S tier, right?
Yeah, this is probably the easiest S tier I might have ever seen.
Yeah.
Just your classic two, really a 3-for-1, because you
Yeah.
can kill 2 different things and it's gonna leave itself untouched. So they
Yeah.
got to clear a 4, 7, 8 health a long range vehicle that,
Yeah.
oh, you might have also given it stealth. Oh, you might have also hidden it behind an army of Vanguard. So like,
It's sometimes a
I
4 for 1,
think
isn't it?
yeah, it can if they don't deal with it for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
phenomenal card.
yeah, it's going in almost every deck if you have it, except perhaps maybe the lowest to the ground super aggro
Yeah.
drone build that I don't think we've really seen yet. Yeah, Long Strike should be
Long
almost
Strike
everywhere.
and Onvar are very, very. They're so far near the top of that. Look at me and nerf me list. There is. He's, you know. I mean, and to be fair, like I think Long Strike. You've got to remember. You've got to think about it not just in a vacuum, but in context of the rest of the Tau faction. And as we've already said several times in this video, Tau do struggle to come back from behind, and that is the function that Long Strike does. It just like Will of Gork for Orcs, right? Like if Orcs get too far behind, press Will of Gork in case of emergency. Well, that's what Long Strike does. But I do think they could tone it down a little bit. I'd just like to see maybe the marker light come down from 5 to maybe 3, 2 or 3. I think the rest of it would be fine. But anyway, okay. What about the savior protocols? I still haven't got my head around this card. I still don't think I'm maximizing this effectively. How are you
Mhm.
finding this card? How are you using it, and where would you rate it?
So off the bat, I'm thinking this card is going to be looking pretty powerful just because it's permanent cost reduction for the whole game. And I think the only other place we've seen this, I believe, is like well, there's a Necron card that doesn't get played much, Implacable Conqueror. Uh, but that's because it's 5 energy. This thing is 3 energy, so you can play it much earlier in the game, perhaps when the tempo loss isn't as sufficient or impactful on you. And the real kicker here is that drones are things that are usually costing 1 or 2 energy, and a lot of the units are going to give them for free in your hand. So this is really the card that lets you tap into the absurd value and tempo swings that Companion enables on a lot of the already powerful Tau cards you're running just because of the text without Companion on them. They're now that much better because you're playing their drones for free or for 1 energy. So in any build that wants to utilize Companion, and I think most probably should, because going wide is one of the Tau strategies that a lot of their cards synergize well with. I think that's a 5 for sure. Um, Now, like kind of like Pathfinder, I would say like not every deck wants to be making drones cheaper, but I think most of the good ones do. And Piranha, the turn 3 play this, turn 4 Piranha, 2 free gun drones. That's just like it seems like a really meta powerful play right now.
Yeah.
But I can also see, like the battle suits, if you don't have a lot of other companion cards, not wanting to run it. Infantry, if you're not having a lot of companion cards, not wanting to run it.
No, but I guess you know, uh, obviously every card has to fit the deck type, doesn't it? But you think it's a 5 for the ones it should be in? It's S tier.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to Pathfinder.
Do you
Even
play it
like
on
one
turn
copy.
3? Oh, sorry, energy 3. I always find that weird. So like, I don't know about you. So let's say you're sitting on this and the sniper drone, or this and the crisis suit. Which do you play on
Hmm.
the energy 3?
That is heavily matchup dependent. It is entirely dependent on what do I think is more likely. Is he going to play a threat I need to deal with next turn? Uh, and like really importantly, like chaos, for instance, like I'm probably
Yeah.
playing a unit to remove
Yeah.
whatever they're going to put down. But if it's like orc control, they're probably not going to do something too scary on turn 4. They're going to make a grot, right? So I'll
Yeah.
play this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
now later in the game, I'm getting free drones after their Will of Gork to refill the board properly. Um, I think that's what it's huge against. I mean, it's even like against chaos. Actually, funny enough, I don't know if a lot of people use this, but the offense card against Chaos makes the stratagems cheaper by 1. So you play this on turn 1 against Chaos, which is usually worth it to then be able to swarm drones easier against them for the rest of the game. So I think it's definitely got a lot of uses. But then again, not like sometimes you just don't have the chance to play it. It stays in your hand.
Yeah.
Like not great, but you were probably playing other better cards throughout the game. Like it's can be situational in the match, but having at least one of them, if you have a good amount of companion cards, you're going to see improvements in games against decks where you need to refill the board.
All right. Cool. Let's keep it as a 5 then. Uh, have you played a game with the almighty 10 drop Storm Surge.
I have created one draft deck where I had to pick this card, and I do not believe I got to play it. So no, I have not used this, and
Is
I
this
don't think I will.
is this the most unplayable card in the faction?
Uh, I would definitely. It's not even a battle suit. I would think that if it's a battle suit, you could give it
Yeah,
flank, and that would be interesting. But it's not
yeah.
even a battle suit. I see. So yeah,
If it was a
I
battle
think it
suit,
is.
I would try one, but it's not, is it? Oh no, it's so sad. I just oh man, these giant units. What are they doing? All right. What about the Hammerhead? I'm kind of curious about this card. This card feels to me a bit like some of the Orc B team cards. So like, what's a good example? What's the 4-drop Orc that the range attack goes up every time something dies?
Oh, the Death Gun Luda.
The Death Gun Looter. The Death Gun Looter is one of those cards where I look at it and I go, this is a good card. This is a pretty good card. Like, I'm going to run this card. And then I build the deck and go, I haven't got any room for that card.
Hmm.
And Hammerhead feels a bit like that to me. Like, I don't think this is a bad card, but I just don't think it ever, or very rarely, makes the cut.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's 6 energy, and unless you're running double cost reduction, it's going to be even more expensive if you want to get the gun drone value out of it. And at 6 energy, I feel oftentimes the Tau is something a little more exciting to do.
Yeah,
Um, but in a pure companion drone swarm build where you do want to have like a one big body at the end of the curve, I can see someone using it, at least definitely as a fine card in draft or whatnot, because it's giving you multiple bodies. But I would say in general for constructed, it's probably a bad card.
bad.
Um, just yeah, it's not flying, so they're gonna attack it for 3 melee, probably, and it's gonna die.
But it has got 7 health for 6 isn't bad. 7 health for
That is
6.
true. It might survive against a faction that doesn't have a lot of melee flankers.
Yeah.
One thing against like orcs, they're just
Vet
gonna
Storm
send
Boy would
their
kill it,
veteran
yeah.
storm boy.
Yeah. But you know, Vet Storm Boy kills anything, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
maybe that's not the best metric then.
I mean, yeah, Vet Storm Boy. S tier. All right, cool. What about Dark Strider? Now, a Dark Strider's been nerfed, so we'll
Mhm.
evaluate it based on the nerf. So for
Okay.
everybody who is curious, it's still the card itself. The front bit still reads the same as that, but the talent, the structural analyzer, which basically can give 2 marker light to anything, including the enemy warlord, which is usually what you do with it. It now costs 3 instead of 2. So what do you think to that change, and where would you rate this guy?
So I've been using since I unlocked him, I've been using him in almost all of my decks. For I mean, just a 3/3 body with stealth to drop early game Tau, like that can just be a good tempo play to get an early board, which is really important. But if you have some drones out, now he's stealthing them.
Yeah,
Late game, he's stealthing 2 bodies and himself, and now he's going to give you, or he did give you, a 2 energy card for 2 marker light on the warlord potentially. Now it's 3 energy, but even late game, that's a lot of damage potential. Just like Dark Strider, the 2 drones do stealths, and your warlord. That's 4 bodies. Uh, his ability that's going to be 2 damage per body. So now you've got +8 damage. Let's say you're playing Anva, Stormify is another plus 2 damage from all of them. So that's 16 damage just because of what this guy has done is stealth the board and give you that ability. It's huge. Although it does cost some energy, and now it's going to cost a little more energy. So for him to be S tier, you want to be running drones, which I guess I've been saying in the past cards that like most good decks want to be running some complement of drones. But I can definitely see him just being good if you don't have a way to fully capitalize on a wide board and stealthing the drones. But I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, early on I was just like, this guy's S tier, like
Hmm.
just phenomenal. And I actually think the nerf to structural analyzer is bigger than people realize because generally when I play this guy anyway, I always want to play. I'm not too worried about whether he stealths the drones or not, but that's a bonus. But I really do want to get that structural analyzer on the enemy warlord and almost save it for later.
Mm,
And you kind of have to do it that turn because now he's going to get taken out, right? Your opponent's not going to let you get a second structural analyzer. And I just feel like the pressure of doing that the next turn and it costing 3 is quite a big deal. Like if you play this on E3, at least on E4 before the nerf, you could drop the 2 structural analyzer and you still have 2 energy left, so you could drop a drone or something like that. Whereas now it's going to take up that whole turn 4, and I can see you just choosing not to use it. I
yeah.
actually think it's quite a big difference, and like I say, so I mean, do you keep this guy on so that in your opening mulligan, let's say you don't have any other drones, and you're gonna mulligan things away, would you still keep him in hand, or would you only keep him with other drones?
I'm keeping him if
Oh, I've lost you.
value there for an early game tempo play. But uh,
You're keeping him. You keep him for the value, for
yeah,
the tempo play.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But thinking about what you're saying, that's 3 energy to basically save 2 damage per unit later on against the warlord. That kind of reminds me of on Va to save a storm of fire is also going to be 3 energy to make it and then hold it in your hand for later on. And so I would say like right now in like an on Va list, he's not doing as much because he's kind of just offers the same thing as holding a storm of fire. But definitely like an Omisos list, he's very good.
Hmm.
Um,
So what would you give him? Would you give him a 4 or a 5?
I think right now, I would probably say conservatively a 4. I think I did just cut him from one of my lists today. Because yeah, you're not going to be able to use his ability as often, which is, I mean, the main reason you would play him for sure. But by no means like he's still a very powerful card.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking of powerful cards, stealth suit.
Oh yeah, another quick 5 from me.
Yeah,
I
same for
think
me.
this is
This guy.
going in all my lists. It's
Yeah, it's
honestly
so
this is
good.
maybe I think this might have been like the most excited card I was to see for the whole faction because like I
Yeah,
really
me too.
like how I like their battle suits and I like stealth. Like I think stealth is like a cool idea. I didn't like seeing it mostly on Tyranids, and now I get this cool faction with cool battle suits and stuff. Like I thought for once they might make it a kind of lamer early game 3-drop stealth unit, kind of like a just something that does damage like Warp Spider. But this actually is like a whole game within itself because you get an ability that's just making units and you're buffing them if you have Anva. So it opens up a whole little mini game of playing your
Yeah,
crisis flank suits. And I mean it's 5 damage range stealth on 4 energy. It's much like the Lictor that a lot of Tyranid decks play, but also making you units. So incredible.
making your units. Sometimes on E bank a shield from Onbar, got this guy on E4, and then 5 you've got the powerful crisis suit flanker. Either side of Onvar, you play the hero path for the extra 1 energy. They get their hero, so they've basically got +1 health, both of them. And then you've got this free shield that you can put on what you want for the trade. I mean, it's such a powerful turn 4 and 5 that, yeah, I love this card. I am conscious of time, in the sense that we've still got a lot of cards to get through, so I'm going to move us on. Onshi,
And this
I,
is another
I
5.
had Onshi as a 5 before, and I don't think that's changed. Big thing I'd say about Onshi is infantry, so coming on for free with the Devilfish, and also in that deck, just making things like combo cards cheaper is big. Playing Onshi and then the Devilfish cost costing 4, and the sniper drone only costing 2. I mean, really got to get rid of Onshi if you're playing against Tau. What have we got in here? This is the Oh yeah, so the invocations can actually be played as separate cards. Now, in own VAR, you're never going to play invocations as cards, right? But
Right.
I could see you doing that in Shadow Sun, and actually even in the Omesos, I've put a Storm of Fire in there in one of my decks before. And what do you think to the Zephyr Grace then as a card itself?
Yeah, so as a card that you're including in your deck, I would probably say this is like a 4. Like it's a good card if you need the effect to trade. Like you're probably running this if you have some large units, battle suits, or large vehicles that you want to get more value out of. Um, in the context of making it from an invocation, I think this is like a definitely an S tier. Like this is a great
Yeah,
card to make from invocations. It's the reason to play them.
yeah,
Getting to repeatedly attack without taking damage is insane.
yeah.
But
Well,
I
let's
mean, yeah.
let's review them. That's a good point because we're gonna have this with the drones as well. So when we're rating them, are we rating them as actual cards, like cards you would put in your deck, as opposed to
Yeah, I actually I put down two numbers that I have for like cards in your deck and for when they're generated or
right?
like in terms of value that way.
Okay.
But I think on the board, yeah, let's put them down as cards in your deck because
Yeah,
that's what you play them as.
cards in your deck. This is good, but as a on variability, it's awesome, isn't it? Right, cool. What about the Enforcer? The six. This is the 6-drop battle suit. It gives adjacent units +1 range attack, and it also has companion 2 Guardian drones. They're the ones that only cost 1 energy.
Hmm.
Thoughts on this card?
Yeah, this is a really solid, good card, I would say.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a high melee and range body with sufficient health for the energy. And this is really the reason I say play one savior protocols in decks that are going to have some companion cards because one savior protocols out, you're getting 6 extra HP of Vanguard for free when you play this guy, which can be really good for slowing down early game pressure that you're facing as Tau and getting to protect some more important units in your back line to get more value out of them. So yeah, I would say this guy is definitely a very solid good card to have in something where you like just you're going to need some late game Vanguard cards and you have ability to synergize with drones, which should be a lot of decks.
I mean, I'm tempted to say this guy's a 5.
Yeah, I could say he's definitely like in the maybe like the lower end of S tier.
It's the thing we haven't
Uh,
talked about, and maybe I think about this because I'm such an Orc player. I played Orcs for so long. It's the fact that you can stick this guy next to your Warlord, and your Warlord goes up to 3. Sorry,
mhm.
3 range attack. That's huge. That's like it feels it's Makari basically for Tau. It's like a Makari effect, isn't it? But obviously that's melee instead of range.
That's a good point, BJ. That's I am playing him a lot. I realize just to make a little bit better trade because as I said
Yeah,
earlier, it's also hard for Tau to get an extra point of damage on board, and
yeah,
sometimes this guy has 2 extra points of damage on board
yeah.
that you need to make good trades. So that's actually a great point. So yeah,
Maybe towards the
with
bottom
that in
of
mind,
S tier.
definitely probably an S tier card. Because I like again, I think most decks are playing this guy.
Most decks are playing, aren't they? Sure. Such a good. It also stands up well to like even Orcs and stuff. It's a good, very good card. Very good. What about the let's do the Sky Ray, the Hammerhead.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be joining our Fire Warrior friend
Sky Ray is worse than the Hammerhead.
for
It's
sure.
it's
It's only one body.
one body. The health's same, but for 7. I think it's flat out worse than the Hammerhead. So I would put this in. I wouldn't say it's as bad as the 10 drop, but I'd say it's
You might at least get to play it during the game.
it's unplayable. Isn't it? You never putting that in your deck.
No.
What about the Fire Warrior Marksman? I think this is a card I got badly wrong. My
Hmm.
initial thing. I think I might have made this guy unplayable. I can't remember. I either had him in
I
bad
think you
or
did
good.
have him down there, yeah.
That's wrong. Where would you have this guy?
And in light of like your infantry video and just the synergies with like Devilfish, but also just the synergy with Stealth, which is also very prevalent in Tau strategies. I think this guy is definitely like a solid situational card. Or that if you're going big into like the Stealth marker light OTK or giving him long range flank and marker light is always like those are two potent synergies, but not having stealth innately and being 4 HP and 2 melee, a lot of decks might not be able to protect him or use him well, but the synergy certainly exists.
Does really well with the defense stratagem, slapping the guard down the turn you play this. He also does really well in like a more aggro. I don't think we're seeing much of that at the minute. Tau. Um, or should I say, when I say aggro, I mean like more tempo decks that are playing probably on Mesos where you're playing something on the first turn. That is where I think this guy is very very good. Like if your opponent's got a DS8 to finish off or a long what's it called sniper drone or something like that from turn 3,
Hmm.
still needing to finish that off, and then you've got this guy. What do? They hit this guy to get rid of the long. You know what I mean? And then, and then when he does get to attack, obviously putting on the two thing with long range is great. And as you said, with Devilfish is that's insane. Like get this guy off with the Devilfish is just he's just busted. Really really good. Helps you. He's like a mini long strike basically, because if the opponent's got something really big, you bring this on with the Devilfish first. He then puts the two mark light on, and the rest of your board gets the benefit. I think you're right though. I think that's a situation, isn't it? That's a situation where he's good, and then there are other
Hmm.
situations where he's a bit bad, and you wish you had a crisis bodyguard. Yeah, I think 3 is probably about right for him. Definitely not unplayable. I was definitely.
Definitely not unplayable.
What about this card, the Technological Supremacy? 1 cost that makes the suits healed and then gives them +3 health.
Yeah, this card is obviously it's screaming battle suits build, which while it might not be the most optimal tile build at the moment, is still very good. And even it also says vehicle actually, as I believe as well.
Yep. Yeah. So the
And
Devilfish.
so Devilfish,
Yeah.
Piranha, Long Strike, it's got uses in other synergies as well. And just, I mean, just like 3 health for 1 energy is really not a bad deal early game. You're trying to trade and keep your unit alive. So it's versatile because it's cheap, and it also can be used on your warlord. It's a unit. So in that game, if you're looking down at like your 8 HP, you have a taunter out, but there's Wrath of Cain or Wailing Doom rather. You might be able to put this to yourself to 11 and survive. So it's definitely like I would say it's a good card in a deck that can have some use out of its battle suit and vehicle text.
Do you reckon a 4?
Yes.
Yeah. I think a 4's fair because its ability is insane. Like, can't ask for much more for 1 energy. But there are games that I've had where I had a game today where I had 2 of them in my hand for like 4 turns, just doing nothing, and I really
Hmm.
wished I had something else, you know. So it's good, but I'd say a 4's about. All right, let's put. So take this off 2 seconds. Okay, right. What do we got next? Let's have a look at the. Um, let's do the Riptide. Let's do the Riptide. I think I
Oh,
might.
all right.
I think I might have had this as a bad card at the start of the thing. I know where I'm putting this, but tell me what you
Hmm.
think to the Riptide.
Um, I say this card is a 3. The situational good being off of dynamic offensive. I think this card is essentially long strike numbers 3 and 4, or 2 and 3 rather. But a lot of other decks, it's only offering 3 melee on an 8 energy body, and if they have board control, they're probably trading it away. But yeah, it's definitely impressive with dynamic offensive. In fact, I think you showed me that one firsthand in a game.
It's. I mean, I can't tell you how many games this guy's won me. I mean, straight up won me. And by the way, I'm not just talking about because it had flank and it came on long strike
Oh.
style. Like it's so good. Like I played orcs. You know, I dropped the broadside on 5. He mucking about at it. On 6, I know he had something down that he'd not finished from 3. On 6, I dropped the enforcer with the drones because I think I'd done the protocol or something like that. He will have gawks it because he's going first. He's got 7, and then next turn I just dropped Riptide, and he's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I've used mucking about. I've used will have gawk. I wasn't expecting an 8 drop, you know." And you just go, yeah. And to your point about the 3 melee, I think that's fair. But it has got 9 health with a shield. You know that
Hmm.
that is not easy for people. If you've been, obviously if you're miles behind on board, but if you've been keeping up on board, um, that's not easy for your opponent to take out without hard remove. And you can play the previous one we just talked about, Technological Supremacy on Riptide, which is phenomenal. You can drop the Honored Ethereal next to him to make him big sturdy vanguard and with a shield because he keeps getting the shield, so you can keep putting the shield on. You can then put the shield on a different flanking crisis suit, for example, that's coming on from your dynamic offensive. So this guy really helps you close the games out as
Yeah.
well. Is it,
I mean, you're making some very solid arguments for this fella. I mean, I might not have even played it myself, so I might not be the best to comment on his usability. Um, I mean, yeah, the having more late game threats against something like orcs in particular after they've expended their resources is certainly valuable. It's expensive though,
yeah, it is expensive.
and so in a lot of games, I don't know if you're getting
But
a
here's
chance to play this as much. But
but in the just to make a couple more cases
okay.
for him, right? So he is expensive. However, if you're not playing the make drones cheaper card, like the saver protocols and the piranhas, then even like a broadside, for example, costs 9 energy to get the drones, right?
Hmm.
Whereas this guy doesn't. You're not worried about the drones, just the body. So, um, so in a sense, like the 8, um, from a comparison point of view, is not as bad. And then the other thing is, my argument with the Riptide is he only belongs in a battlesuit deck. I would never play him outside of a battlesuit deck, right?
Hmm.
So to be clear, but in a battlesuit deck, you're generally not going wide. It's the one sort of tile build where you're not necessarily going as wide. Now, with Onvar, obviously, the standard is you go wide and then you play Storm of Fire, and that's your win con. But with the battlesuit deck, that's not the case, and the Riptide then becomes the win con because he's the kind of go tall win con. And I think that's the niche. It is a niche, but that's the niche that he fills in the faction. And I think he was designed for battlesuit deck. And it's been, and if you maximize dynamic offensive, like if you actually maximize it so that it pretty much always draws a suit, or a flanker. So in other words, if it's not a suit, it's a Vespid or a long strike, right? So
Right.
they've still got flank. And you run 2 of them with long strike, which is the equivalent of, like, let's say Eldar running 2 Hemlocks and Wailing Doom. That's pretty common.
Hmm.
I don't think that's too top heavy, especially when they've all got flank potentially.
Right.
I think it's a super. Like I say, it's makes me want to go back and play some more suits because
You know,
it, it
that's
it's
you're making me
overperformed.
want to play, making me play this Riptide. I think I haven't given him a fair shake, perhaps, and I'll have to go back now and try this
And I was
Riptide
skeptical,
only
you know,
suits
to
build.
be clear, I was very skeptical, just theorizing and looking at it and going, you know what? And that's why I put it as bad. I put it as bad. I was like, this is 8 energy. It's an expensive healer crap that does nothing on the turn it comes down. It's a bad card. And then I've actually played it in a deck that it was built in, and I was like, this card keeps winning me games. What's going on?
Well, that's the
Yeah.
important part, I suppose.
And the funny thing is, like, you get one with flank, it comes on, takes over the board. Your opponent's now panicking, trying to get rid of it. The next turn, you drop the other one. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I was halfway through that one. Oh no, now there's 2. Oh, I've lost the game. You know, it's like, it's that overwhelming kind of like late game where Gazgul wants to take it steady and just kind of go 1 for 1 at a time, and it can just turn the heat up. Like, you better have an answer, because if you haven't, you're screwed with this guy. Anyway, I would say that it is a good card in the suit deck.
Hmm. I would agree with you there.
And I would say, if we were just saying like outside of that, where is it? I'd probably say it's a 3. So I don't know. We had another card earlier where we talked about this, didn't we? Was it the Savior Protocol?
I think we can put it in good
I feel like,
in the suits context.
yeah, I feel like you'd only play it in the suit deck, but I do feel like it's
I mean, you make a really
something
good
else.
point that other factions have consecutive late game big units to drop, like 2 Hemlocks. We only have 1 long strike for the most part. So yeah, I can definitely see a yeah, it can be good when you want to drop single large units consecutively.
Yeah,
You only have so many spot removals per faction, anyways.
yeah. And it makes this card, let's talk about this card next,
Yeah,
Dynamic Offensive, because it just makes this card like insane. Like
right.
insane. Like, Oh man, it's so much fun. It's so much fun playing this card, Dynamic Offensive, knowing you've got Riptides and Broadsides in your deck.
I
It's
mean,
just,
yeah, my big thing is this card with Broadside or
oh.
Stealth Suit is just phenomenal.
Or Crisis Bodyguard, like you said earlier.
Prices, yeah, I mean, it's hard to find a suit that's not phenomenal with, and it's a huge, it's giving you like 2 for 1s, and it itself is drawing 2 cards for 1. Really, the only thing about it is the 3 energy tempo loss playing it when
Yeah,
Tau do want to be developing an early board to not
yeah,
be get behind later on.
yeah.
Although in a way, if it draws you the right cards, it kind of makes up for that because you're just gonna flank and kill whatever they got to play in response. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
pretty
difficult. It's
pretty good
difficult
card.
when to play it, but I would say that if you look through the factions, every faction has a 3 cost draw 2 cards, pretty much, right?
Hmm.
And that problem you just laid out is the same for for many factions. Maybe less so for Gazgul because they're not necessarily having to play tempo as much. But this card's upside, I think, trumps all of them, right? The Tyranid one gives you
Right.
+1 health. The Orc one gives you +1 melee. The Marines get it 1 cheaper, which is pretty good. But I think this trumps all of them. Like getting flank and being able to design a deck where that consistently happens, or you get long strike or a Vespid. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's S tier for me.
Hmm.
Um, Again, you'd want to design around it, but it's super powerful. Um, Okay, so look, let's do a little drone deep dive. Yeah.
Okay.
So we got the missile drone first, which basically has the standard 3 health and flying and does 2 blast when it attacks. We got the gun drone, which only does 1 attack, but it automatically deals 2 randomly at the start, right? What else have we got drone wise? We've got the
Marker and Guardian.
marker
Oh
and the
yeah.
guardian. So the Guardian obviously isn't flying, but it is Vanguard. Uh, and then where's the mark? How have you found the? And then we'll get onto the 3 drop ones in a minute. But how have you found this kind of like core set of drones, and where would you put them?
So I played a little bit of Omisis, as I said, and there you were mainly using the gun, the Guardian, and the Marker. And that's probably what most people are seeing as well, because that's what the Drone Commander makes, what a lot of the companion cards make. So maybe starting with the the Guardian one, because that's what gets put down a lot. This is being made as an ability. I think it's like, as we said earlier, with that shield card. As an ability, this thing is like a 5 because you're getting to block every turn for 2 energy consistently, which is incredibly powerful. As a card in your deck, it's a 3, I'd say, just because like it's a card in your deck, and Tau have like cards that make copies of this instead. You could run in a Forcer Battle Suit, right?
Yeah,
Um, I can see some strategies where you want to like vomit your hand really early for like a super aggro wide strat where like you're playing Saber Protocols, and then turn 4 you're playing a stealth drone, 2 of these, a missile drone, etc. Um, but yeah, in your deck, it's probably situational to run this, just because there's better things to do with 1 energy. But
yeah,
it's
agreed.
really good to be playing with the hero power, that's for sure.
Yeah, marker drone.
Marker drone. This guy is interesting. He's definitely like the highest power ceiling of all these basic drones, because the way the marker light stacks on the enemy warlord just blows them up. I mean, that's what a lot of people have been saying about Tau. They just get blown up from marker light immediately. Um, so once again, I think being made from the abilities, he's probably like a 5. Um, but once again, in the deck, I would probably just be playing Pathfinder, which is going to make you 2 marker drones, right? Except for the cases where once again you're playing the super hand vomit go wide strategy. So I'd probably say another 3 for in the deck, but like it's definitely a good card. That's why you're playing Pathfinders, and even like the Cold Star later on. It also makes marker drones, or you're making them from Omisis ability for sure.
Yeah, I can't decide whether we're evaluating it right by saying doing it from the perspective of having a card in your deck, or how good is this card because of the ways it can be used. That's the other way of looking at it, isn't it? But anyway,
Yeah.
we've kind of committed to it, so we'll keep going. Okay, so with the missile and the gun drone, I know you and I have both actually run this as a card in decks. What do
Yes.
you think to these, and where?
I think this is a solid, good card, and all I would have to say there is look at Tyranids. Been running that Mucilid Spore for a long time now. I see that often played turn one.
Yeah,
I'm not a big Tyrannid player, so I don't know the best about that. But like having a body early on that is how you're buffing or giving stealth or whatever later on, it's like clearing a wide board that your opponent's playing like a bunch of grots or plays like against the enemy drones, right? It's gonna get you a lot of value there.
yeah.
So against a lot of Tau decks, if you're struggling with having like not a lot of early game presence, Marker Drone is a really good thing to be able to drop early against commanders that can't remove it to give you some early board presence. And then later on, if it's getting reduced in your hand because of like On Chi or Piranha or Savior protocols, you're just playing it as if like a free card. So
And also, Jai's is lovely with Devilfish because
oh,
coming on basically as AOE, right? Coming on and attacking and doing the blast damage. Blast 2 is super nice. You're building the deck and you've only got 2 slots. You want something for the early game. You put Would you choose 2 missile drones over 2 gun drones, or the other way?
I'm probably choosing 2 missile drones just because I can direct where the damage goes,
Yeah.
and gun drone is random. And personally, I like taking most of the RNG chances out of my deck, so I know I'm in control. But I mean, the 2 random ping can often be like utilized quite powerfully as well.
Where do you have both of these as 4s, as actual putting in your deck, but with a missile drone slightly above it?
I'd probably put gun drone down with the other common drones, situational.
I had it as a 5. I mean, I think as
I
a
mean,
I th
being spammed like out of Piranha and out of the commander ability, like yeah, it could be a 5 in that regard for sure. As a card that's worth 2 energy, but as a card in your deck that you're because that means like you're not playing. Or,
yeah.
I mean, you're probably playing Piranha, but that means potentially you're not playing like another card that supports the gun drones being made. And if that makes sense to the viewers.
I can't decide whether I think it's a 3 or a 4 as a card in its own right, because I made a deck today and it was doing phenomenally well in it, and the synergy with stealth is very good, and um, also like when you drop it on turn one, Gazgold plays a Grot or Eldar play a Storm Guardian, and I don't know. There's just lots of things that a Gundren can just sort of be quite helpful to pick off early. It's also pretty nice against stealth, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
being able to target something that's actually in stealth. Maybe it hits the Warp Spider, so the Warp Spider can't keep bouncing, or um,
Well, I
there's a,
see missile drone being able to do that too, and it's going to hit the adjacent unit. So oftentimes, unless
yeah,
they've really well positioned their board, you can hit their
yeah,
stealth unit as well.
yeah,
Um, the only thing I would say, not to get too off track, but this kind of reminds me of like Sternguard Sergeant, which is like a good card in Ultramarines, but it when I've had to play that card, it kind of frustrates me when the damage just goes to the warlord and doesn't
yeah,
take care of the unit, and that's just like
yeah.
a frustrating experience.
I agree. I agree. All right, let's put it there. So then we've got the sort of 3 drop versions of the drones then. So we've got the DS8 and the uh I always forget the name of it. Sniper drone, isn't it? Yeah. Which
Yep.
has long range. And the DS8, for those who don't know, that's the one that it's essentially Obi-Wan Kenobi. Not Obi-Wan, R2D2, sorry. That's the 5 health, deal 2 tap damage to all enemies, including the Warlord at the start of the turn. I actually didn't like this card for a long time, and
Hmm.
literally again today, the deck I built today was the first one I had this in, and I have to say, it actually did pretty well. Um, and it can come out in Valued Sacrifice, which now the Valued Sacrifice has been nerfed a little bit. It's gone up to 6 energy. That was insane. But as a card in its own right, as a 3 drop, what do you think?
As a 3 drop, I would say this is certainly a good card.
Oh yeah,
Even in your deck, because like it can be made companion via strike team, which we haven't gotten to yet, but in that case actually it gets like worse because you don't really care about the body on that as much as you care about the effect on this drone. And it can be getting its cost reduced, it can be given stealth, so it's just hiding. and threatening 2 damage to your entire opponent's board, which makes it really hard to even start to build the board to counter Tau when you're just taking 2 damage every turn. And I think this is maybe one of the more oppressive cards that some people have had problems with. But it's not like overall like S tier, I would say, because it's 0 melee. If you don't have something that's synergized to protect it, then it's getting picked off really easily. But
And
once you are protecting it,
only good when you're using it the way you want to use it, right? Like if it's turn 6 or 7 and you're a little bit behind on board, playing this is going to be terrible, right? Because you've got no way of defending it. Opponent's already on board, so they're going to trade it off on the melee for easy. There are going to be times and situations where you're just regretting the day you were born having this in your hand. But then
right?
early game, if you get to play this on turn 3 and follow your plan and put down the Vanguard defense stratagem at the same time, or the stealth drone from turn 2, then you play this on 3 into that drone, then you play the crisis bodyguard to block it again on 4. I mean, if you get it on your terms, it's phenomenal, right?
For sure.
So 4 for that. What about the sniper drone?
Maybe lower down on the good list, I would say, but I think it fills a similar role as a support turret for like a different um for a different opponent. So like support turret was good for enemies that are trying to go build a wide board against you, like a troop oriented orc deck or Eldar or scarabs. The sniper drone is going to be much better against the enemies
Chaos.
building up singular units like chaos, because it's trading for free with long range. You stealth this guy, gonna be giving you a lot of free
They
damage
don't have much
against your
range. They don't have
opponent.
much anti-flyer.
Exactly, and even like in a vacuum, it's threatening 8 damage to the warlord just for them to trade it out against it,
That's
and that's a lot
insane,
of
isn't
damage
it?
for 3 energy.
I have to say this card's really impressed me. I've really liked this card. Again, it's possibly the best card with the Devilfish, I would say.
Yes, for sure. It's because you can play it for like 1 energy as well if you have cost
Yeah,
reduction.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really need to play Savior Protocol. I struggle with this card. Like when it's played against me, I hate it. But I always find when I'm playing it, I just don't know when to play it. Like I always want to develop the board, and I just like don't want to take 3 energy off to play it. If that makes sense.
Right.
Obviously, you do get that tempo back, but it's about how big of a gap can you afford, I guess, between
Hmm.
losing the tempo and getting it back. That's the thing you're always calculating. But I need to practice with it more. All right, so for that, let's through a few more. What about this guy? I'm kind of interested to see what you think.
Hmm.
I don't know whether you used him. He's a beginner card. He's a common card. Sorry,
Hmm.
and he is a Breacher Shasui, and he says Vanguard, 5 health, 5 range, 5 melee, 5 energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a pretty like solid average card, I would say. Honestly, in context of the Tau, maybe even not good, but I would definitely put this guy in tier 3 because you've got high melee attack on a Tau card, which is rare for their faction outside of some of their legends. So yeah, definitely for like people that don't even have full collections yet, if you are needing some melee damage and a Vanguard body as well, it does shore up some of the weaknesses of Tau. Um, and as the infantry synergies with Devilfish
Yeah,
is bringing it up to
yeah,
definitely a situationally powerful card.
yeah. I like it. I like that it can't be cheated as well. You know, you can't cheat the trade with it. It's like if you want to
Hmm.
trade with it, you're gonna take 5, full stop. You know, none of your do I hit with the veteran Storm Boy or do I hit with the Squig Buggy because you've got 1 week stat. It's like no, whichever one you want to go with, you're gonna take 5 damage, and I kind of like that. It just adds a degree of predictability.
It reminds me of playing like Apothecary
Yeah,
Pyroxerus.
and I like that card by the way in Ultramarines. I've always loved that card, that heal. I think it's a bit underplayed, and I think it's actually probably pretty good right now that card. But anyway, yeah. All right, I agree with you though. I do think it's a 3, so we'll go with that. What about the Pulse Onslaught? So this is the
Uh,
interesting card, right? Because it's 2 energy and
yeah,
it's 3 damage, but it can go to face. So what do you think?
right. So this is a card I was excited to see them make in the game. I'm a big fan of Warforge getting like these generic application stratagems like 3 damage or 2 energy, very efficient, very straightforward. I think it's a staple of card games. So I was glad to see it.
Me too.
Unfortunately, I think it suffers much like Shadow Sun does from the camo, making it kind of useless in half your games. And so, with that context, taking the context of like the current metagame and as things are, I'd say this card is just a 3 because
Right.
it's solid burn to close. When I tried this card, I was closing out games with even 2 of them, like 6 damage, 4 energy. That's pretty good to close out a game. And if you're having a trade on board after units have been around or you're on the offense and they don't have camo, yeah, it's good removal. It's solid, but half your games you're not going to be able to use it as the removal you want it to, and that's going to feel bad.
Yeah.
And if they get rid of the camo, I think this is a good card, and it's probably a staple in a lot of Tau decks. But at the moment, it's definitely just situational.
If people don't know what we're talking about, Barric's on about the Solar Eclipse, which is the offense card. So if you're playing against Tau, you can play this, and if you're going first, basically, and that just basically means that whenever a troop is deployed, it gains camouflage for 1 turn. So it really does wreck these target spells, doesn't it? Um, we might as well rate this as well. I think what you said with Pulse is correct. I really like it, and uh, if it's not for camo, it's very good, but camo is a problem. Where would you put Solar Eclipse? Obviously, we're rating this card as you're playing against Tau, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
Is
yeah,
it?
this card is S tier against Tau.
Yeah, best. It's the best
Even
offense card in the game, isn't it? Or at least one of them.
yes, it's the best offense card for being like the first one you unlock
Yeah,
at Forge level
yeah,
5 or whatever.
yeah,
Um, I mean, it bricks all of Tau's targeted removal. It bricks the whole Warlord and Shadow Sun. Um, I've been just building around it personally by removing the targeted cards from my deck.
yeah. Which is a bit
Um,
sad in a way. It's a bit like I don't
Indeed,
like that. I don't like
I
that.
agree with that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
if you're playing against Tau, unless you are like Necrons with their target removal, like you're probably picking this every day.
Okay, let's see if we can get a few quick ones done. So, emergency dispensation. This is a legendary. Choose a troop in your
Yeah,
deck, any 3 less. I mean, this is 5 out of 5, isn't it? This is phenomenal.
for sure. This is just better Prophet of the Law for your troops.
So
It's
many
yeah,
ways, so many ways to
auto
use it.
include in every deck
Yeah.
when you get it.
I mean, yeah. There's not really a deck you can play. The only deck I could think of where you wouldn't play that is if you were doing some sort of weird, super aggro, low to the ground, loads of like you play all the drones, like lots of 1s and 2 costs. But even then, you're probably still gonna have enough 3 and 4
I mean,
for it
even
to be
then,
worth it.
it's still a tutor for the drone that you want at the right moment.
I know that's like the
Yeah,
flaw of it, which is really good. But playing that into like on-she and getting on-she for 3 or
exactly.
something is
And
just sick.
truly disgusting is when you combine that on the Chaos Offensive, playing that on turn 1, and then getting into turn 2, drop that on She.
Oh my god, yeah, that is. Oh god. Oh, oh, so much power. Um, so that was that. We might as well talk about this one, which is the other
Yeah,
direct damage one, right? The Razor Shark. Now the difference here, obviously, apart from the fact it's 4 and it does cost 4, does 5 damage, but it is only to a troop, whereas the Pulse
yeah,
Onslaught was to could go to face,
face.
and it
Right.
does
Yeah.
suffer from camouflage again. So where would you put this?
Yeah, because of camo being a thing, this is a bad card, I would say.
Yeah,
Because it's only troops, so it's literally a troop removal card, and you can't use it to remove troops in half your games. So
exactly.
when it when that is done away with, hopefully in the future, I could see this definitely being a solid good card because it's better than Storm Raven in terms of troop removal, even though it can't go face. It
Yeah.
can like for if there's a control Tau deck, I can definitely see this being good once camo's done away with. But for now, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I could maybe see an argument for it being like bottom of situational, because like um sort of engine type cards, right? Like Devilfish, like you do it will be useful, like in a pinch to just remove something. But the problem is it's still behind on board, and Warforge is very tempo based, so I don't know. I think it's a bit of a trap in a way. You can talk about Piranha. I've not used it too much, so you
Mhm.
you you probably have more
Yeah,
a
I
thought
think
on Piranha.
I mean, I just actually started playing it frequently when I switched up my Enva build. I think this is definitely an S tier card. Every drone deck is playing it. Even a lot of decks that aren't purely drones are still playing it because it's offering all right body on 4. It's not great just playing it, but it's already giving you a passive ability. On 5, it's a free drone. On 6, it's 2 drones. And that's in a vacuum. Now you're comboing with Savior Protocols. You get 2 free drones on turn 3 when you play it. You reduce its cost with Dispensation. You can play 2 of them on turn 4. Bunch of free drones.
Super good.
There's so much combo with that cost reduction at 4 energy.
It gives me a headache, right? Because let's say you in the mulligan, and let's say you get the Piranha in your opening hand, right? But you don't have Savior Protocols. I'm always like,
Mhm.
what do I do? Do I keep do I keep this? Even if I'm going to mulligan the other 2 cards to try and get this, and I'm like, oh, do I keep it? But then you don't actually want to play it on 4 if you've not played Savior Protocols,
Right.
do you? And then I feel like I've lost my curve really, and I should have had something else. But
Yeah, in those situations, I usually just mull everything and hope for
right,
something playable earlier.
okay, that's good to know. I've learned something there. What do you think to the Firesight Marksman? Now, I think I had this as a 5. I think this might have been a card I got a bit wrong because I've been
Hmm.
quite underwhelmed by it, if I'm honest. What do you think?
Yeah. Um, Fireside. Yeah, I would say this is falls to like situational in my book.
Yeah.
Just because like it has drone synergy and it has Marker Light synergy, so in some essence, it's like a very versatile card. It's also
But the
4
drone synergy's not
damage.
that good, is it? Like, that's the thing that
It's not great.
why do you really need +1 range on drones? It's like, it doesn't play into any sort of,
I think the niche this fills is like in an Mysos drone deck, you're playing this because you're having drones all the time from your ability. So you're always going to get a bonus out of that passive. And like Mysos, you might want Marker Light. I mean, you're going wide, so the Marker Light is kind of removal with your
Mm,
wide board.
mm.
Or like you're running coordinated engagement and that might assist in a combo kill. But it's kind of clunky at 5 energy.
It is.
If they maybe they reduce the stats and they reduce the cost of it, I could see it being like a slightly like 3 or 4 energy Pathfinder.
Yeah.
That would be interesting, but at 5 it's situational.
Okay, let's tackle a couple of the nerfed cards today. First one was the coordinated engagement, which is the hard removal. I don't know about you, but I was quite baffled by this nerf. Basically, what they've done is they've just changed the give Marker Light 3 to give Marker Light 2. I
Yeah.
I don't know where the need for that came from, but
I don't know who was having a problem with
yeah,
this. I in
it's
fact I might not even be qualified to speak because I don't know if I've really played this card outside of draft again.
yeah,
Largely, I'm gonna say it again because of I think the camo hurts its viability,
yeah,
but also just like outside of Shadow Sun, which also camo, it's not that easy to proc the Marker Light outside of like Pathfinder unless you're
yeah.
getting lucky marker drone hits. So
Very good in a
definitely
Shadow Sun deck, but
for sure
I'd say it's a good card in a Shadow Sun deck, but outside of that, it's
situational.
yeah,
Even more so now because now it's barely letting you hit something with it's like 1 less marker light because of the
yeah.
nerf for whatever reason.
Is it bad?
Um,
Probably not.
outside of Shadow Sun,
I
it's
guess it's
not
got to be
bad.
situational, right?
It's
If
situational,
it removes hard shell for 3 energy, then it's good, right? Like
right?
that's the definition of situational, isn't it? You know, if it kills an enemy
Exactly.
long strike, it's like, yeah. And the other card that got nerfed was this guy, which I have to say, the Honored Ethereal, I underrated when I first looked at it, and in practice,
Hmm.
it's been phenomenal, and it was definitely a 5. But however, it has been nerfed. I'd say pretty considerably. It's been nerfed.
I would agree.
I think it's the melee and the health went down from 5. Both went down from 5 to 4.
Yeah,
So they're 4 melee now and 4 health. Still got the shield, still got the Vanguard talent, still got the Serene Unifier. What do you think to the nerf, and where would you put this?
yeah. I mean, I can understand the nerf. I just got it recently as well, and I've been using it the past couple days, and was really pleased with it. I thought like this is like maybe
Yeah,
even better Tyranid Prime with the stats and all.
yeah,
And like doubling my on-va abilities and whatnot. But yeah, I the nerf I can understand it. If they're gonna hit a Tau card, might as well let it be this, I suppose. It was certainly a powerhouse before. I think really what hurts is not necessarily the health because it had the shield already, so it was already hard to kill. But it was nice once again. Like the reason the Breacher Shasui redemption was the melee 8 attack. This guy 5 melee was really important to kill some things in a Talus, and so now only 4. I'm not sure how that'll impact it. I guess I'll try it out next couple of days. Um, but yeah, I think before it was certainly a 5. Now I might be more inclined to just put it at the top of good
yeah,
because not every time you even want to give Vanguard to adjacent units. It kind of makes a positional puzzle more so than even on Va. Um, and But in other times, it's incredibly powerful when you're giving taunt to. My favorite thing to do is you play the Stingwing on turn 3, trade a troop. Turn 4, you now have like an armored taunter or vanguard unit, rather, protecting this guy,
Yeah.
and the next guy is also protecting this guy, so on and so
It's
forth.
still
So
probably good enough to stay in, but I wonder if there are decks where you just wouldn't. Maybe he's not on auto include now. I don't know. And maybe if it's like, would you play him over a Crisis Bodyguard?
I mean, I think that would depend if I have infantry or suit
Yeah, it depends on this. It depends on the build a
synergy.
bit more, doesn't it? Okay, we need to. I mean, this has only happened today, so we need to obviously play with him a little bit more. Um, what about the battle suits then? So we've still got the broadside, the crisis suit, and the cold
Gold
star,
Star. Yeah, I like these guys.
and the
Big battle. Oh,
stealth
yeah,
one as
this,
well.
can't forget that one. Yeah, I'm a big fan of battle suits. And let's see, starting I guess with the Crisis. Let's
Yeah,
say
yeah. Where would you put the
this
crisis?
guy is in, like, overall. I think this is obviously a good unit.
Hmm.
Just like looking at stats alone, comparing like a common as well in this game.
Yeah, which is
Like the
lovely, by
sniper,
the way. I'm
right?
really I always love seeing a powerful, like a Carnifex, like a powerful unit that a beginner player can get to use day one. I think that's brilliant.
For sure. Yeah, this guy, I mean, like in the vacuum on board, he's threatening 8 damage to the Warlord. In the battlesuit synergy in this deck, he's a great early target for Anvada buff. He's a great early target for technological supremacy. He's trading really well with early units. He's hard to trade against because he's flying and has high ranged. And then you're giving him flank with dynamic offensive. Even if it might not be the best thing you get, it's still a 3 energy, 4 damage flanker.
Is he better
So
than
I
the
would definitely put
sniper
this.
drone?
I mean, but I think this is a synergy question. Do you have this battle suit or drone synergy in your deck? If you have cost reduction for drones and not so much for battle suit synergy, then I'd say sniper drone is better because it's got a long range and might be cheaper. If you've got the technological supremacy and dynamic offensive, then crisis suit is your 3 drop. And sometimes maybe even both. If you're just playing like a real mid range on VA, you need 3 drops to buff. Like they're both really good, solid cards.
So do you think it's good or do you think it's a 5?
I'd say this is like a good card, just because like a
Yeah.
lot of the drone heavy builds, which are probably the more popular and maybe better overall decks, are not going to really be running this guy. But it's definitely like a phenomenal common and a great 3 drop if you need another early solid body.
Okay, and then the broadside?
Broadside's easy S tier from me. I mean, this is like Carnifex got like a Mecha Godzilla takeover. That's how I see this guy. Just so much value without any battlefield synergy even needing. You already have like a long range, good statted armored unit at 5 that demands to be attacked. Otherwise, you're reaping like insane value later on. Mid game, he's dropping drones that are what I think are some of the better drones, the missile drones.
Mhm.
Uh, they're coming down cheaper if you've got the cost reduction. So you sometimes dropping him like on turn 7 and getting 2 drones. Buff his health, give him shield. Like this guy is a beast.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a great play. Not only getting him flanked with dynamic offensive, but perhaps even more common is dropping stealth drone in this. Like hiding a broadside behind a stealth drone is game winning in the mid game.
Yeah, and that battlesuit deck with the dynamic offensive, I mean, he's almost as good as the Riptide, he's so good coming on with
Oh,
flank.
for
So
sure.
good. Um, and the stealth one, Stealth Boy. So this guy's 5 energy, and you would kind of need to play the stealth drones the same turn, obviously,
Hmm.
to get that benefit. And we've already said how good the stealth drone is. So really, you're looking at like 7 energy, but I guess you're only playing it in a deck where you can reduce the cost of the drones. Is that right?
Yeah, so this guy is kind of like he's a niche but very powerful card. He's got that battlesuit type, so he's got the synergy with that stuff. He's got companions, so he's got synergy with the cost reduction, as you said. And like the stealth is probably one of the most powerful things that the Tau can do in a vacuum at the moment. And so being able to play this guy after a board wipe um, against like Chaos or Orcs is incredibly powerful late game because you're stealthing him and another unit. And you have two stealth drones that will give stealth to like more bigger things you drop the turn after that. It can be a real comeback card, and even like 5 damage for 5 energy stealth body is like not even a terrible tempo play at the worst. So I think running him as a one of in a lot of decks that have any benefit between either companion and or battle suits is you might like it. I'd say this guy's a solid good card, maybe a sleeper card for some that haven't used it as much. I like it a lot.
See, I wouldn't call it. I don't think I'd call it a bad card, but
Uh-huh.
I do think it's a bit slow at 5 energy. Probably needing more energy than that to get a benefit of a stealth drone. And you want the benefit. This is so you made a point about the broadside, right? Like if you
Hmm.
play the broadside on 5 and you don't get the missile drones, it doesn't matter. Like it's a brilliant body. You play in the suit and the suit is good. Um, if you just play this suit, it's okay, but like the stealth suit that's 4 energy also has 5 range attack and stealth, right?
Yeah. I
Is it
mean this,
is it
this
good enough
the
as
body
just a
is
suit?
worse. The body is worse, but the drones are far better. Like I'd rather have stealth drones and missile drones almost any day.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So, but that's why I mean it's slow though, right? Because it's not really a
yeah,
5 drop.
I don't.
It's not a
It's
five
not a
drop.
5 drop. Yeah,
No.
it's like a 7,
Yeah.
8, or 9 drop depending on how much cost
Yeah.
reduction you have.
This makes me think it's a
So
3, but
it could be situational then if we're um thinking later game use is not as effective.
do you think it's been played in lots of
For
meta
value.
decks?
Um, I mean, I've seen it played against me. I've been using it, and then
Yeah.
the 2 cents I've been giving on the Cow channel in the Discord, I think I've gotten some people to adopt it, and they said they've liked it. But I mean,
As a
that's not a
one-off, like a
study.
one-off. Yeah.
One of, I think this is like a one of card, but like even in Savior Protocols is an S tier card, and I think that one of is even recommended in some builds as well. It's yeah, it's not like I mean, yeah, it's definitely not an S tier card, but I think it's good um to do
Okay.
what you if you want stealth. Like if you don't
Yeah.
want stealth, then it's
Yeah,
like not.
sure. Yeah. All right, let's keep it towards the bottom of good then. I've not played with it as much, so. Uh, what about for the greater good, legendary?
Mm, greater good.
This is the
Uh, no, this is
Vanguard.
maybe the one I'm probably like maybe the most torn between. I've been using it more and more, and I do like it. I honestly, and I do think it is actually can be situationally far better than Stealth Drone for sure. Um, and sometimes it's really good because I heard people saying that what you really want to be going for is a 2-for-1 where you're using it to trade and take minimal damage and then also save your board the following turn.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's got a lot of like I you're putting it over here in situational okay. I definitely think it's at least a good
No,
card
yeah,
because
yeah.
of
Sorry, I was
the
just
fact that if like I think at worst it is a stealth drone for 1 turn. And because stealth drone is an S tier card, like like a card that has a floor of an S tier card, I think is
yeah,
at least good.
yeah.
And then the fact that you can set up some really insane um plays for it can definitely bump it up. But I don't know where to put it between 4 and 5. I don't know how much you've used it. What do you think?
Um, first time I used it, I think I had it in the wrong type of deck.
Uh-huh.
And then I've used it in my drone build with Omesis, very good in that. I used it in the infantry deck, very good in that because like where you want to set combos up like the infantry deck and stuff, it's really good because it allows you to basically develop the board and play this on the Lord, and they can't unless they've got hard removal or AoE, they can't touch your troops. So you play Devilfish and then you play this. Okay, what if you're playing Eldar or something? What are they going to do? They can't remove the Devilfish. So yeah, I could see this being um, bottom of 5 if I'm honest, but I also do think there are situations where I have had games where it's just sat in my hand. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to play it this turn. Like I'm getting neither of those two benefits really apply this turn. Um, uh, it can just buy you a turn as well. I don't know if you just need a turn. You know,
Right.
maybe it's turn 7 and you've got long strike and you're like, right, I just need one more turn. Then long strike's gonna come on and do its thing. There's that as well, but I'd
Yeah, I
say
mean,
good. I'd say good.
okay. Yeah, I'd agree there. I mean, yeah, even that yeah, that absolute worst case scenario, you're just spinning it from your hand to buy you some time. Like that's if they have a board of a couple like 4 damage attackers, that's now 1, and so you're healing. That's kind of like a heal for 2 energy for like a heal 6 or 8 is kind of good still.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I think it's I don't know. I can see why it would be a 5 though for 2 energy. I don't know. Um, the thing is, you rate it differently when it's a legendary as well, don't you? Like, I like how you compared it to Stealth Drone, but then I'm comparing it to
Hmm.
Long Strike, and I'm like, it's not as good as Long Strike.
Right.
So I don't know. But it is good. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's one of the nice things with Tau, right? That the older legendaries are good. It's not a bad one.
Hmm.
Like Ultramarines, you don't need any of the legendaries. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Tau, it's a different story. What about this guy? This is a guy I really want to go back to and try
Hmm.
more because my first attempts with this guy were massively underwhelming. And this is one where when I read this, I go, "This is amazing. This card.
Hmm.
This is phenomenal. Like flying, you know, if it's a flyer with 7 health, and then he gives everybody buffs. He's like an engine, and he's marker drones, and he's got massive 8 range, which most people are going to have to attack that because he's a flyer. This just ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? This is fantastic. So what's wrong with this card, Barric?
Um, I mean, I too was like I thought this was a great card, and then I used it a bit, and it was underwhelming. But I have
It's like,
not
when do I
yet
play it?
yeah, it's got the companion, so you're thinking you want to have some Saber Protocol cost reduction for it, and
Mm,
in that regard, it's actually quite good in the sense that 7 energy, if you have double cost reduction out, you're getting 17 health of flyers at 7 energy. So that is like a really high upside. However, if you don't have that synergy and you're just dropping like a big beefy flying, not a lot of impact unit at 7, it might just die. It's only got 7 HP. It's not like not a lot of HP, but it's not 8 like a Hemlock had or whatever. Um, However, you made a good point in your argument for Riptide earlier that just having some big bodies that kind of do demand an answer to drop consecutively as Tau might not always be bad when you're playing it with opponents with limited removal. Um, and it's also, I mean, it's got the upside that if it does survive, whatever you play after that is going to be even harder to kill while they still have this to deal with. So, yeah, I think I had it as like situational good before, but or situational okay, but I might even just say put it next to Riptide in the sense if we're thinking that having, you know, a threatening high bodied card with potential for high synergy with either drones and or battle suits is valuable. What do
it's
you
quite,
think?
well, I think there's quite a lot of stipulations there that you've said that you've got to have met. And I think in the real game, you just end up sitting there with this guy in your hand, not playing him because you haven't got those stipulations. You know, you haven't played double savior, and it tends to be. Uh, so you made a comparison to Riptide. What I realised early on is it's not anywhere near as good as Riptide in that deck because Riptide, because let's say either of these get flank then from the Dio. Riptide has long range. This guy doesn't. You know, he has long range and a shield. You know, so uh, he comes on, he hits for free because of his long range. Then the next turn, when you hit me back, I've got a shield that you've got to get rid of before you do damage. Whereas this guy, that's 2 lots of damage that this guy doesn't. Damage resistance, sorry, that this guy doesn't have.
Right.
So I don't think he is anywhere near the flanker that Riptide is. I think his value for me is this, like you said, is about the give. He's an engine, right? Giving the 2 health buff. But that to me says the game's got to go longer, or you've got to be all in on like the double savior protocols probably, and piranhas and things like that. Um, I also felt that he was played at that kind of awkward turn for big stuff where the next turn all the hard removal kicks in, like like
Mm-hmm.
now
Like
I don't.
Oswald Destruction.
Yeah, I don't know whether change to Will of Gork is going to alter things a bit. Maybe. So let me think. So if you were going first and you played this guy, so it's E7, then it's now his E7, so he can't Will of Gork, but he, yeah. So if you're going first, I guess it's kind of got a little bit better against Orcs in that regard. Um, I would struggle right now. I would struggle to give this guy more than a 3. He's
Okay.
he's just on paper looks great, but he has been really underwhelming for me. I can't talk to you about one game where I've gone, oh, Cold Star was really great. He really won me. Where I could
Mm-hmm.
tell you about many games where the Riptide was. So for me, I'd have to say I think he's a 3, but I would say this is a guy who's got the potential. He should have the potential to go up,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that he'll do well in a slightly later game, or like you said, a kind of all in on the savior protocols. We might come back to him, but I think I'm struggling to give him more than a 3. Just I don't know. Yeah, let's come back to him because I'm going around in circles.
Oh,
All
all
right.
right.
What do you think to the Razor Shark? Common card.
Mm, yeah, like, yeah, this card. I mean, it's cool for a common. Like it does a lot. It does better than like Fire Prism, for instance.
Yeah.
But in the context of like what Tau have to offer, especially that late in the game, like this is not a good card. This is not even like like maybe if you don't have a long strike yet, you run this. But yeah, I'd say it's a bad card because Tau have like I mean definitely I'd run Cold Star over this, I would probably say. Just a better body and more synergy with things, but not even like a I mean, yeah, the big Tau vehicles are generally for like constructed, I think, pretty unimpressive other than like long strike, obviously. What what do you think?
Well, when we say it's a bad card, I'm like, um, it's not very sexy, right? It's got this ability that's been printed like on 50,000 cards so far. I don't know
Right.
why they're obsessed with deal 3 damage. But the thing is, his rally deal 3 damage is actually pretty good in practice. It's actually pretty good. Like it's an immediate impacts the board. Dealing 3 damage, you've always got 2 from a warlord. That's a 5 health unit you can deal with. Like so it actually trades and then it's on the board with a fly in with 7 health, so good luck. Now obviously there are cards like Veteran Stormboy eats this thing for breakfast, right? Flying
Yeah.
with high melee attack is like a disaster for the Razor Shark.
Fireheart.
Fireheart, yeah. But there aren't like many situations beyond that where they'll have that luxury. So people are having to trade against the range, and you've got 7 damage. I think this is a 3, and especially again, especially like if you're like not if you're fairly new to the game, or you're building your collection, or you're not necessarily playing in the top 50 and whatnot. Like I definitely think you can put this in and make your deck good. Like it'll
All right. You know
top
what?
top
I
end the
think you sold
curve.
me because I'm thinking
It's not
about Crimson
great,
Hunter.
but it's okay.
Crimson. Well, I'm just thinking about Crimson Hunter because,
Yeah,
like, that's like a very staple in like most Eldar decks, especially now with all these more flyers coming out.
yeah,
And like, oftentimes though, you're still only sending like 3 damage or something. It's still a good play.
yeah,
So
yeah. And this
I would
guy's
say, yeah.
he's a 7 health flyer. So most units have to trade range damage, and it's got 7 range, and it's already impacted the board and dealt with up to a 5. Again, I have actually used this in quite a few builds because I've tried some theme stuff like all vehicles or all flyers, and it has surprised me how I've gone, ooh, oh, I need that this turn. Ooh, ooh, this helps me clear this unit. You know what I mean? It actually has a use because it has an instant effect. And instant effects in this game, especially on higher cost things, are very, very good. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is a good card. I'm saying it's an okay card. I don't think it's bad. It's
Okay.
okay. But
And yeah, in the
if,
context of like Crimson Hunter being
yeah,
really good and doing a similar effect most of the time.
I mean, if you're competing in the top 10, you really want this in your deck at the top end? Probably not. But can it make you? Can it play? You know, if you can you put this to the top end of your curve as you're sort of collecting tau and building your? I think it's decent. I think it's okay job.
Yeah.
Literally okay. You know, not good, not bad. Okay. You know, and you look at this bad cards here. They just don't do
I guess
anything.
it is far better than Hammerhead or Skyray Gunship.
Yeah. So it does something, doesn't it? It does something on the turn it comes down. It's not something your opponent can defend. It gets past vanguards. You know, all of that
Oh yeah,
stuff.
and the flying. I guess you gotta. Oh yeah, we gotta be remembering that it's always almost guaranteeing the 7 damage trade.
Yeah, guaranteed 7 damage straight, and it can even be used to finish. Like that 3 damage can hit the enemy warlord.
Yeah. This.
Anyway, right, priority target deal to. I thought I had this card maybe a bit higher than it's been. Like I just thought giving Marker 2 to the enemy. It reminded me of Proper Killy. I thought, oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
like the Proper Killy of the faction. But I've not really found a way of, not really found a deck to put it in. I did make a
Yeah.
really aggro-y drone deck, and I did run one copy of it in that. But what do you think?
So what I would say here is the way the effect plays out and everything except marker light synergy, which are you going to coordinated offensive the card that you just spent 7 energy or 4 energy putting 2 marker light on? I don't think so. So like I think this is a bad card when compared to Storm of Fire, which is in the same faction. It's 3 energy for 2 range across all your units, which is essentially giving you the same damage potential as 2 marker light on 1 unit, like the Warlord, for instance, but also with the versatility that you can actually spread that Storm of Fire damage where you can't spread the priority target damage. So because they just have in my opinion, a strictly better card in Storm of Fire, I think priority target is a bad card at the moment.
Bomb of Fire, where would you put that? What would you give that?
Um,
As a card to play, you wouldn't
as a card
obviously
to play
you wouldn't put it in
in
on
the
VAR, but in
right.
the other warlords, what would
I think it's a very good, solid finisher card, and like the
you? Yeah,
drone swarm. Like I've been killed many times from a bunch of little guardian and marker drones. All of
yeah.
a sudden, storm of fire.
Agreed, agreed. What about the other Markalite then? So this one is the one that does Markalite 1. It can also go on the warlord, but this one
Hmm.
um stuns an enemy as well as giving it
Yeah.
Markalite. Do you think this is better than priority target?
Uh, I mean, like it is better than priority target, but I don't think it hammerhead strike as far
Sorry,
as like being
sorry.
used
I
against units
think I think
and
I
against
lost.
like the
I
warlord.
think I lost you for a second there.
Oh yeah. So uh I don't think it is a great use against units because of the camo problem, suffering from the single target removal aspect, and against the warlord I don't think it's super valuable spending 3 energy for just 1 marker light, where like if you're trying to stack a finisher, you just play Storm of Fire for 3 energy.
Which is bad
Um
as well.
Yeah, like for 3 energy for Tal, like it reminds me of like a tempo card like Banshee Mask. But Banshee Mask, like I think 3 damage is worth a lot more than
Yeah,
1 marker
Banshee
light.
Mask is pretty good. Like this is it's weird, isn't it? Because you say, well, 3 damage, it kind of can add up to that, obviously, with the marker like if other units invest. But then that's more conditions, isn't it? Whereas Banshee Mask just does 3 damage.
Right.
It could hit a flyer, like where whereas now I've got to use my Warlord, trade with your flyer, probably taking a load of damage in order to get the Marklight benefit. So I just think the Banshee Mask beats this every time.
I'd agree there.
All right, let's have a look. Some of these cards. Um, this card is the. Let's look at some of the. So we've got the Fire Warrior Breacher. We've got the Kader Fireblade. We've got the 4-drop that brings out the DS8, the Strike Team. Think to these three.
Um, I think all these things are okay cards. Yeah, I think they're just like they do fit well in that infantry synergy. Like these probably would be cards you run with infantry synergies heavy in your deck. Even like Strike Team, I think people run that in a drone build because it's giving you more turrets, which are really good to stack, I suppose. But they're not super exciting bodies, and they don't do a whole like the cadre leader and the breacher don't have anything to do with drones as much.
That's a good point. I've not tried the strike team in a drone build. I think I've not done it in the inf type of it. One for me to test. I want to test it a little bit more. I do like the cheap. I've always had a thing about cheap vanguards. Like this guy is like felt quite. I've had a few games where he's been so happy to see him. You know, like
Hmm.
um. But then I've also had other games where he's traded with an enemy 3-drop and this guy's died and his 3-drop's got 1 health left, and I think, not quite cutting the mustard, are you? So I don't know. This isn't a card. We don't need to worry about that. That's on the stealth suit. What do you think about this card? Have you played this card? This is a card that I am dying to test in the faction
Hmm.
and cannot figure out how, when, what deck to put it in. Just, what do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting card that I haven't gotten a whole lot of use out of, that I've attempted
Is it
with
a win more
myself.
card?
I don't think it is. It can be used as it, and I think that'd be the wrong use of it. I will say I have been blown out a couple times by some drone builds that play this card, and like a very well-timed aggressive push where they play an early board of drones that I can't deal with. They stealth them, and usually this would just be the amount of drones that would swing into me once and bring me down to about, 15, 20 HP, and then I'd have board and I'd win from there. But they stealth the drones and they give fortified positions to them. So now these drones are trading into me 2 turns with stealth. And all of a sudden, if some of these drones are like the support turrets, so now they're being able to attack twice, do their AoE clear, and not take any damage back,
That's
like
interesting.
that can be really heinous. So I don't know a great build that would do that consistently, but it's certainly there's certainly a setup where this becomes like an absolutely game finisher card off of what you would expect to be a really weak board.
Would you say it's okay then, situational, or
I would say it's a situational card for sure.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say bad. I can't really think
Mm.
of a. But to
I
be
mean,
fair, I genuinely don't think I've put it in a deck because I've just got stuck at the deck building stage. I'm like, I just keep finding other cards I want to play instead of
mhm.
it, and I just but I, if people actually playing it and it's working, then I'll go with that. This card's unplayable, isn't it?
Yeah. I think for 3 energy in the Tau, I want to spend my energy for almost anything other than buffing a troop
I just
with
don't.
that
I
weak
just
of a buff.
I just don't understand what that's why we have that. What about the card draw then? That we've talked about the DO. I think we gave the DO a 5 out of 5. Where do you put the Persian
Mhm.
Empire?
Um, yeah, this is I have to say this is a good card. Solid. Anva doesn't need a lot of card draw because his ability gives them cards, but for the other warlords, they definitely can run out of steam, and this is going to be refilling your hand if you're not using battle suit draw from dynamic offensive. So yeah, I mean, if you're Omisos or Shadow Sun and you're having problems running out of cards, then this is definitely what you want one or two of.
So would you
Um,
give it a 4 or a 3?
I give it a 4.
Yeah.
Like it's
Good with
draw
Shadow
three
Sun, isn't it? Because
cards.
Shadow Sun's so much good at like removals and trolling, and so it triggers it quick. And there's some things that
Yeah.
this has like good counters to as well. Like it's great against Scarabs.
Oh
Scarabs just
yeah, you get a quick draw real soon after their
Scarabs
first.
just like, I'll trade in all my Scarabs to rebuild them all. And I'm like, okay, I'll draw 3 cards for 0 mana, find my AoE, thank you very much. Yeah. What's the other one? Grots. Gretchen mobs and things like that.
Hmm.
So it's good. It's a bit slower than Dio. It's not as specific as well. Like Dio, you can build an absolute deck around it. And like you say, it's probably not needed with Onvar as much. Um, I do want to find a deck that I was thinking about this again this week about a deck that just draws the whole deck. Um,
Yeah.
and having less cards. So it's the idea of like having. Is it better to get the second copy? So I don't know. Let's take Stealth Suit, right? Is it better to get the second copy of Stealth Suit than to get a different card, like another card, like maybe I play Missile Drone? Do you see what I mean? So like,
Mm.
if it's better to actually just in more games see my second copy of that card than it is having a greater variety of cards, then what you should be doing is playing maximizing your card draw. And I wonder what a suit deck looks like that basically has. It might be the Shadow Sun suit deck
Yeah.
that has like double version in Empire, double dynamic offense, and just goes pure suit. That could be interesting.
I definitely can see that because if you're just like you're no longer buffing the suits, you're just putting them in. You're kind of maybe being like a little more mid-range aggressive, playing another suit, and you're trading them in. You're drawing all of your cards again, um, and then Shadow Sun's marker lighting letting you trade better. That's one of I definitely want to play more around with Shadow Sun. If they ever fix the camo thing,
Fix the
that will
camo.
be exciting to use that. I like that. I like to see some more variety of suit builds
Yeah.
available, and that's a good idea.
Anyway, for sure. Right, what about the Valley Sacrifice? So this one's just got nerfed. It was 5 energy, draw 3 drones, give them Vanguard, which obviously grounds
Hmm.
them so they're not flying, but it could draw the 3 drops, which I felt was a bit broken. I think it should have only been
Hmm.
2 drops, but it's 3 drops. Anyway, the change they've made is they've now made it cost 6 energy instead of 5. What do you think to this card, and where would you, at 6 energy, where would you rank this?
Yeah, so I was initially unimpressed with this card, even though I think it was a pain point for playing against a lot of people. Because yeah, it can have that high roll potential, spawning multiple turrets. And I think that was the big thing is multiple turrets, and then if you stealth them because you wanted to stealth them, for instance, and that just you know perfect RNG. That's going to be really hard to deal with for 5 energy. So that could definitely be an annoying outcome. But like I was thinking of like your probabilistic outcomes using it repeatedly, and I saw a lot of the time when it's played against me as like a defensive card, they my opponent gets two of them stealth, and I just keep hitting him and kill him, and it doesn't work. So like it's a super random card, even more so because like the stealth drone can really mess it up with being used as a defensive card, and like if you want to use it as an offensive card, you might just get a bunch of like guardian drones and not that like it doesn't seem like a consistent card I would want to be using in a deck. So I probably had it at situational okay and would leave it there after the nerf,
Yeah,
just because like it is a lot of bodies, and so if you have the shield card or you're like doing a lot of board spamming going wide with like Omesos, like yeah, you probably still want to run it just because it's a lot of bodies for one card.
yeah,
But outside of that, like any deck that's trying to, play more precisely, um, you kind of I'm thinking like I want deterministic outcomes for when I spend 5 energy or 6 energy on something, right? I don't want to randomly just get a bunch of 0 1s with stealth.
yeah. Okay, we are new there. Just grab these. Okay. Sunshine Bomber. This is the big one, isn't it? The big 9 drop.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it does have an immediate effect, but it's a weak one. It's give Mark like 2 for 9 energy. That's quite expensive. But then once it's down, flying, 9 health, 5 blast. What?
I mean, yeah, this is like this looks very similar to Storm Surge, if not, you get a little bit of marker light, which like is not great. If I want marker light, I'm probably running a more reliable enabler than a 9 energy card. So I'd probably put it in like a bottom of bad, if not unplayable. It's not unplayable if you need like a really expensive, like if you don't have a lot of other high end cards and don't
Yeah.
want to run Storm Surge, obviously, like
Beginner
it's probably
decks.
like
Beginner decks
a
could run.
beginner
They
deck.
could run one at the time, right, but it's a bad card. Do you know what I was thinking?
Oh, what was that?
You know, Long Strike has the give
Mm-hmm.
5 marker light. If they swap their that effect, right? So if Long Strike only got the marker light 2, and this
Yeah.
guy got the marker light 5, that might work. Because I think this guy
Mm.
needs, needs a bigger impact on rally. I think two's not enough.
If there's ever a dynamic offensive for vehicles, he could be a good card.
Oh my lord, that would be insane. Well, I say it would be insane. This crump the gits in orcs. You don't see him playing stompers.
Right.
Anyway. All right. So what we got now is. Have a look. Oh,
Defensive.
we've still got an invocation. Sorry, so it was the give armor invocation. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think this is really going to be played as a card. I think as a card, I think it's probably quite bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it's
Yeah,
situational.
I've seen it played in the go wide drone decks. Like
Okay.
Omisos, he doesn't have it from Anva, so then you play it there. So I think situationally in like a go wide drone deck, like yeah, it's like the orc encampment, camouflage and armor card that they would sometimes use.
The only problem with that is, I think armor is just so much better on big units, isn't it? It's like
This is when you're trying to avoid a board wipe.
right. Oh, I see.
Like against chaos.
So do you think
You
it's a
don't want to
three?
get like it's situational in Omisos go wide drones, and I wouldn't use it outside of that.
All right. So now that leaves us with basically defense and offense stratagems. So we've got the one that is deal 2 damage to an enemy troop. At first, I really liked this, and then I realized I can't use it all the time, most of the time, because
Right.
they're gonna use the offense against me.
Exactly.
So it's now actually become probably a pretty bad card. I mean, it would be a
Yeah.
good card, but I think it's bad because of that, don't you?
Yeah, I only take it against Necrons because I don't believe Necrons will want to take the camo like the Imhotep pings. They don't want that. But yeah, I almost always you're gonna be taking this next fella.
Yeah, Guardian Drone. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's got good synergies, I think.
Right.
Deck. I'd say it's good. I'd say it's a 4.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, like in the current context of, I think you're probably what you're gonna pick 99% of the time. I'd say it's S tier like right now, but like as an overall effect, it's good. It's a good effect, but like you're almost always gonna be picking this card.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if there were more options. What else?
This other option is kind of like the same thing.
Oh, Marklight 1.
It's super unimpressive for being the top end forge reward for offense cards. It's honestly, I think it's worse than the gun thing because you actually have to trade a unit in for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not unplayable, but it's bad.
No, yeah, it's definitely not.
And then this one, what do you think to this one? I think I need to experiment with this more. When a player enters a skull, all troops gain vulnerable too. I'm still not really sure I'm understanding how this works, to be honest. So
yeah,
if we've lost a skull, if you deploy a new troop, does it get vulnerable, or is it just the people on the board at the time that the skull triggers?
Yeah, that's it. The latter.
Right.
It's got to be on the board. And so I've not encountered any players using this, but when the bots pull this one on you, I've had to fight through it and think about a little bit how this works.
Yeah.
And it's actually interesting. I think this is like the most fair of the offense cards that they've given to use against the Tau, because it does in a way, it kind of counters both suits and drones, because you're going to make the drones be killed in one shot once the skull is traded, and you're going to make the suits considerably weaker, easier to kill. So it's good against both Tau strategies, but it's also like it has a very sizable back end effect on your own troops, and most decks are playing troops of their own. So it's much more fair, but I think it kind of works well to counter both Tau strategies relatively effectively. If you run into bots, I think people will see the bots using it before players achieve this one or even want to use it. Something to play around, kind of like I think the Tyrannid have an offense card that gives vulnerable, so I think it's fairly similar in the game to how that one works out. But it's certainly, so it's got its use. I would say this is like situational.
Yeah.
Probably best used against if the camo one is best against Shadow Sun, I would say this is the best one to use against Omisos, because it's making the drones easy to kill. Because like you're thinking they're swinging into you, they're dealing you damage, they've gotten a skull, now their stuff is weaker, now their stuff is easy to kill after they've gotten their skull on you. So it makes for comebacks a little easier. And then, do you have the last offense card, the worst one of them all?
I don't think I do.
Oh, the electrostatic interference.
It's really good against Anvar, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that would make me stop playing Anvar the moment I start seeing human players Hold
So
that on me. I've actually, and when I was practicing off the ladder when I first got Tau, I would just stop the game against the boss because I'm like, I don't want to play this like where I literally can't use my hero. Like it's not even practice because it's not gonna end up happening in a real game.
it's
It's
horrendous.
quite yeah. I hope they put a critical eye to some of to that in the camo one before too soon.
Okay, so there we have it, guys. I will do a screenshot of this and I'll put it in the community Discord for everybody after this video releases. That is mine and Barric's opinion right now. Of course, that could change. We're still only like 3 weeks in, and we're still got more testing we want to do, and so some of these could go up and down. But I think this is probably a much more respectable review, and it's much better than the kind of pre-day one thing that I did before. I think this is pretty accurate now. There's a few cars that perhaps we might be slightly off, but we're pretty agreed on this list, to be honest. So yeah, nice guide for you to use when you're building your decks and looking at what to collect and what to prioritize for crafting and all of that sort of good stuff. Just to finish then, Barry, and maybe you and I've enjoyed this. Maybe you and I could do a separate video on sort of like a bit of sort of co-piloting and looking at deck building and stuff. But just overall, in terms of Tau, where are you from a deck building and playing Tau on ladder? Where are you? Where's your head at right now? What's the kind of build you're kind of preferring and moving towards?
Yeah, so I have I started on out on the battle suits, but I think uh, as I've stated, with some of the cards and how they performed, it's not as great as what I'm now settling on, which is kind of just like everyone's saying the cards are so good, they have such a value, so I'm like really just leaning into that full tilt and just playing a maximum value on Va build, where even in like the worst matchups, which in my mind are certain chaos rolls, if they get real early game pressure, and the orcs, of course, or at least I haven't fought the new Gaz nurse, but previously it had been those were really the roughest ones.
Mm.
And so just making sure all my cards are like putting the most amount of HP and damage on the board, as well as having like abilities that stop the opponent from interacting with them. Vanguarding the cheap drones or stealthing them. So
So
it's
have you dropped the card draw then? So have you just dropped dynamic offensive and Russian
yeah,
Empire?
no more dynamic offensive because that was a tempo loss that wasn't always regained. And like sometimes I would draw not a suit or not even the right suit. Like sometimes I just draw like a enforcer and a crisis battle suit when
Hmm.
I needed something with like shield or long range to reliably trade. So that wasn't a consistent strategy. So now it's more savior protocols and drone companion because a lot of the good cards I was already using, like enforcer and broadside, um, they have companion and they weren't going anywhere.
Hmm.
Piranha, of course, is the companion card to combo with that. So you're getting a lot of cheap drones early down.
Are
Um,
you mulliganing hard then for Savior Protocols?
uh, if I don't have nothing else good in the hand, then yes. But if I have like an early like a miss like I'm using missile drones for early game plays,
Yeah.
stealth drones. So if I am anticipating an early fight for the board, I'm going looking for pathfinders and missile drones and stealth drones or dark strider or turret or sniper drone or something to do early. If my opponent is like chaos and I'm on or if the opponent is chaos and I'm on the play, then maybe I'll turn one savior protocols with that with the offense card though. So it like depends. It's very matchup dependent. I'm learning,
Do you run
but like I said,
Devilfish?
no, because I don't think I have enough infantry um
Do you run the
to
3-drop
make it fun.
drones? The sniper drone?
I run yeah, right now I'm doing one turret, one support turret, and one sniper drone, trying to
Right.
figure out kind of hedging because I the drones matchup can be tough too if I don't have the good early game with the missile drones or the support turret. So that I'm kind of hedging between the go wide offensive early and then the late game needing to take out high HP targets with reliable damage.
Got you.
So
Got
still
you.
some testing going on, but it's It's yeah, it's we're talking on about earlier. He's such like a puzzle to play every
Yeah,
turn. I think that's really enjoyable.
I do. Yeah.
I'm getting some of the most engagement out of this game right now. Like, yes, it is powerful, but I think if the other factions and the other balance changes push the other stuff towards like how the tower operating right now, like this game will be really enjoyable for more people.
100%.
Um,
It's a good point that you've made there. People think, oh, you just enjoy it because it's powerful. It's like, no, no. When you're sitting thinking about 3 different lines of play, 4 different lines of play every turn, that's enjoyable to me. Like that gives me agency, autonomy. It makes me feel like if I lost, that I had different options and different routes I could have gone down. If it's just like automatic and then I don't win, then where have I got to go with that? You know. So
exactly.
I think it's a lot of fun on VAR. I've actually got an Eldar deck coming out in a couple of days called Fire and Fade, which is a Zephyr deck, which
Mm,
is really, it's also one of the most fun decks I've played in the game, and I really enjoyed that deck, and I want to go back and play some more of it. And that's a similar thing. It's another one of those where I'm sitting there sometimes going, ooh, there's a good 2 or 3 different options here that are all feasible. And then you start to think, well, if I do that, where does that leave me next turn and the turn after? And I like those decks, so no, I totally get where you're coming from. But listen, man, thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it. It's been great getting your thoughts on it, and it's funny how I know we've talked a bit on Discord and stuff, but it is funny how I think our thought process with Tower has evolved in a similar way, actually. You know,
hmm.
I know like when I can kind of tell when I'm talking to someone who really is starting to get Tau, because I think beginners talk about Tau like as like, oh well, you're either running drones or suits. That's like the beginner outlook
Right.
on Tau. It's like,
That's
well,
that.
actually, neither of those are the best deck. You know,
Right.
it's much more subtle than that. Like, and then you're in this sort of like you said, you're in this sort of strange middle ground where you're playing a more kind of carry on approach and you're trying to get value, and then it's like, well, how do you want to get the value? Do you want to get it through making your drones cheaper and really maximizing companion, or do you want to get it through swing turns with like devilfish and things like that? So no, I've really enjoyed hearing your thoughts today, and thank you so much for coming on and helping us review the Tau cards.
Well, thank you for having me, BJ. It was good to be able to share my thoughts and opinions on this new faction, and hopefully some people out there have gotten to learn a thing or two from this. And yeah, this was great.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you enjoyed this kind of thing. And maybe me and Barric will do something else again, like maybe we'll do some sort of Tau sort of co-pilot session or something, masterclass or something like that. But yeah, let us know what you think. And if there are any cards that you kind of disagree with, perhaps you think we've missed something, just let us know in the comments. Always fun to engage and interact there. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And yeah, thanks guys. We will see you in the next one.